a new look. I don't know what it.
Son of one of my grandsons.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh, really?
Okay, no, it's still 5:13, so I guess we can't start.
Sure we can. Just can't do anything official.
I guess we could start, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Could we start, Adam? Brian?
I make a motion, we start.
There's no actionable items. so
Just
I
doing
think we're okay.
Pledge allegiance and that kind of stuff, we should be good.
Good.
We good to go?
We are live. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm anxious to move through this agenda tonight, council, so you're in control. Anyway, we'd like to welcome you out to our city council meeting this evening. We appreciate your attendance. Let's start with an invocation by Mike Van Cherry, after which, Chief, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after that? Wait for Carolyn just a second.
Our kind Heavenly Father, thank Thee for this splendid opportunity to meet together as elected officials and city staff and citizens. How grateful we are that we have a form of government that allows us to do this, to participate in the deliberative process and to try to make the best decisions for those that we serve. We are grateful for the preparation that has been done in anticipation for this meeting. We ask that Thy Spirit will be here with us, that we can discuss, but have a spirit of reconciliation and have a spirit of not contention, and that we can be able to say the things that are in our hearts and in our minds and in a pleasing manner unto Thee. We thank Thee for our families who support us in our callings and our responsibilities, and ask that Thou will bless them in our absence, that they will be comforted and be able to do productive things. We ask finally a blessing upon this great country, that freedom will reign, and that misinformed, unconstitutional items will not take the forefront, but we will stick close to our Constitution as it was intended to be. These things we humbly pray for and do in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chief, and thank you, Mike. Let's go ahead and do a roll call, and Randy, you want to start us off, please?
Randy Powell, present.
Van Broderick, present.
Jeff Acerson, present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Michael Mancheri, present.
Carolyn Lundberg, present.
Okay, let's go ahead and address the minutes of August 16th, 2021. Any corrections or additions?
Yes, I have one, Mayor.
Okay.
If I might. On the council reports, I made a report about Steve Chudley and the fact that we've worked out a solution with him, and they're going to start moving forward on that drainage line, the property that we traded him for, he bought from us. We have it down as Steve Chutney. And so we probably want to change that to Steve Chudley.
Chudley's good for a name, and
I'm all for Chutney. I really like Chutney, but I
okay.
think we probably need to get his name correct. So.
Anything else?
Yes, on,
Randy?
in the council reports as well, page 2 of the minutes, line 7. Kathy, could you insert the word heritage in front of trail in regards to Noel Greenwood helping to establish the heritage trail? And then also on page 18, Jake, you'll have to help us remember, you stepped out?
Of the minutes or of the staff?
Of the minutes, sorry. And then page 18 of the minutes, it says that you were part of the, I don't know, you make a,
Closed session.
the closed session, and it has you listed as voting, and at least you weren't there for the closing one, so.
Yeah, so you've got me marked down as recusing myself, but then you have me as voting, and so I think that we just need to remove me from that.
At least the last one. I don't know if you were there to.
I think I was present for the motion to stay in, or to enter into a closed session, but was not present for the vote
To,
to reconvene the council meeting. So,
that's all I have.
line 46.
Anyone else?
Thank you, marvelous job on such a long.
Okay, a motion be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve the city council minutes.
I'll second.
Motion by Jake, second by Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We did change a little bit on our orders, so our professional fire people, we're gonna hold you off for a second. We're gonna let Senator Kennedy go first. Has a different appointment, and appreciate you willingness to let us do that. So, council, this is an opportunity. I kind of shared a few things before the meeting started, and he's extended a commitment that he has an open line. He's gonna make sure you have his number, and if you have questions, the session's coming up, and I did the pitch to him that local government's better than, it's the best form of government. It's the closest to the people, so. But we appreciate all you do, so if you have questions or anything you'd like to ask Senator Kennedy? Sure.
Statement along those lines.
Yeah.
And, thanks for having me here. Catherine has done an outstanding job reaching out to me and many like me, and I'm honored to be here. I don't think I've had a chance to be in this city council before, but so I was a representative for District 27, which is North Utah County, for 6 years. Took a couple-year hiatus, and just last December was elected to be your senator. Redistricting is happening right now. I don't think anything's going to change with my coverage for Lindon, and I plan on winning my election next year. So hopefully I'll be able to come back, although the voters will decide whether I am back here again in the future to serve you. But being a state senator is a great privilege. I represent about 100,000 people, so it's prior to I represented about 30,000 people as a representative, so roughly 3 times the amount of opportunities to reach out to the people, and it's a challenge. There's a lot of things happening out there, as you know, federal, state, city, county, and I want to be your resource to make sure that your state government is working the way that it should for you. And that goes for all these good people that are listening online as well as in person behind me. So for that, anybody that wants to, my cell number, and I'll say this 3 times just so that you have it, because if you're inappropriate with the use of a cell phone, I can just block you, but nobody is so far, so I don't have to block anybody, but I like to give out my personal cell phone so that you can ask questions, and I need your help, and if you need my help, I want you to be able to find where I am without having to do too much work. So my cell number is 385-268-9458. I'm Senator Mike Kennedy, and the cell number is 385-268-9458. One more time. I feel like I'm on a
Commercial?
Wait, there's more. Got an infomercial.
Call right now.
Call right now. I'm telling you, you'll even get my wife on the phone if you. Anyways, just kidding. But 385-268-9458. And what I was telling Mr. Mayor prior to this officially opening is there's a lot of stuff that happens on the state government. I need all eyes, all ears, all thoughts, all brains on deck to try to help me, because with the flurry of a 45-day session, and I've done it, this is finished my 7th session, I'll be going into my 8th session, so I'm not new to this, but there's always something sneaking around, and I need your eyes and ears on the things that are important to you, and if you like or don't like something, I want to know about that. I'll just give you a couple reports, things that are on my mind that might relate to Lindon City. One is the expansion of 1600 North. We did fund that, and I'm glad we funded it. I'll just say, I work at Premier Family Medical across the street. I spend more time in the city of Lindon than I do in my own home, except for the time that I sleep. I love Lindon City. I serve your citizens as a doctor. Well, you serve them, and we serve them together as elected officials. And that does bring up a little traffic light question on 200 North versus 400 North, and I would like your thoughts about that too, but 1600 North is a problem, and we will be expanding that. We put in funds for that. I think that's a big thing. The other thing is Utah Lake Authority. Representative Brammer is working on a Utah Lake Authority. There's some issues down at Utah Lake. We all get that, and it's going to take a lot of money and a lot of effort for generations of issues down at Utah Lake, but we are working on something, and I've talked to Brad Frost, American Fork Mayor, who is invested, and I know you are as well, in making sure that that works and doesn't run over local control of what happens with Utah Lake. So as to what's in the works, I'm not deeply integrated in that, but I'm very sensitive to the fact that Utah Lake is a statewide resource. It's particularly a Utah County resource, and we ought to make sure that it works for Utah County. And the final thing I'll offer to you as a thought is, and Mr. Transportation expert, Mayor Asserson is, it's like one of these, okay. So I come out of Premier Family Medical on 200 North, and I've had 2 patients in 6 years, but it's just 2, that it's a death trap. I mean, it feels like when I'm coming out to go north, and I'm crossing 3 lanes, turning lane, and then it's, anyways, I know that we have issues at 400 North. We have a traffic light that's been there for a long time. But my question is there any possibility that that traffic light could move? I know State Street is a state, not a local, but I'm curious about whether or not the businesses, there's a lot of us, it's not just Premier Family Medical, but that place continues to expand. The businesses on 200 North, we're all taking our lives in our hands every time we try to turn north coming out of that west side of there. So anyways, I'm curious about the possibility of if that was relevant, that we could work together on potentially traffic light shifting from 400 North to 200 North so that we still have a traffic light, because I've been told by UDOT that we don't want 2 traffic lights, whatever, a quarter of a mile away from each other, that's increasing danger, not increasing safety. So a little personal thing, while I had you here, I wanted to just share that with you.
So Adam, you want to respond to that? Because 400 North's going to come through eventually, and it'll tie into...
In that case, it'd solve all our problems, but I understand there's some personal property issues and hesitancy. Eventually, is that 50 years from now, or 5 years from now, or?
It's a little bit up in the air, but we've made some headway. And so this is our streets master plan map. So 400 North is proposed to connect and then loop down and head south into Orem on
I
their
know,
1200 West.
Mayor Ellertson was reported, he told me that was part of the master plan a long time ago, and then
This
things
has been-
changed.
Yeah, this has been on the master plan for 20 plus years. And so Lindon City years ago actually bought the Blue Fellowship Bible Church. The ground is owned by Lindon City.
Interesting.
And then we have an agreement with the church that we have to give a 1-year notice, 12 months, and they have to then tear the building down. And so we've purchased the ground. We own the right-of-way underneath their portion of it, so up to about where that arrow is, out to State Street. And then the remainder will be developed when that property owner sells and develops their land.
And
That
to
could
clarify, Adam,
be a
that's
long
not,
time, but-
that's not the large portion of the church, that's the little out
Yeah.
portion. It's the,
So,
right. mhm.
so their newer portion was built in part with the proceeds that the city had as part of the purchase of that land. And
That would make a
so,
lot more sense to me. It's just one of those things that having 2 patients almost die in car crashes coming out of there, it's, I'm a little concerned about.
yeah, and so as we talked with UDOT, to have a second signal at 200 North and then also 400 North, it doesn't meet their spacing requirements, and they don't feel like that would be a safe way to function there. And then our right-of-way, as it would turn up 135 West, is substantially undersized to accommodate traffic there as well. And so there's some obstacles there, but this is planned. There's some right-of-way purchased. When the signal was redone a few years ago, State Street was widened a little bit, and they put the signals in the correct location. It was reconfigured slightly to accommodate this in the future. And so some efforts have been made there.
Thank you very much.
We're
Sorry,
mindful of that, so we're working towards it.
you got a lot of stuff to deal with, but I just thought, hey, I got these valuable people that I can share this citizen concern, because, yeah, I live someplace else, but I mostly live here in your city. And thank you for running the place and for all you do to make it a great place.
And,
I'm open to your questions.
and I know you said you funded 1600 North. There's a lot more funding that needs to come to really make that happen. So you've started the process.
We are more than sensitive to that and happy to dump as much cash into the local opportunities to make the place better as we can.
Council?
Thank you for being here. And thank you for responding to Kathy and making sure that we get to hear from you. Thank you for being my senator, as just as a constituent of one of yours, one of your constituents. So thank you. I appreciate all the things you've done over the years, and I look forward to all the things you're going to do for us as our senator. This one's just kind of a random thing. It was kind of in my council report, but a few weeks ago we had a dead deer out there by the Norton property, and it sat there and sat there and sat there. And so I actually went to Mexico, came back, and it was still there. And so I called DWR and asked how the procedures went. I know our officers had already reported it. There is one employee that handles Utah County, some of Wasatch, and some of Summit, she said. And they do it as a courtesy. Now, that doesn't include major thoroughfares. Those are contracted with other people, like the interstate. How can we possibly get more funding for DWR so that we can not have to have roadkill sit off for extended periods of time?
Is that DWR's responsibility? I'd have to do some research on
Right.
that, because it sounds like they're doing, if they're doing it as a courtesy, the question is who is responsible to clean
Right.
up the refuse in that case, which I don't know, but I can look into that and I'll get back to you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Haven't had that question in 7 years, so time to do some research.
Senator, I did have a comment and asked if you could get a little closer to your mic, if you don't mind just
Sure.
pulling that forward. Thank you.
Test, is that better?
That is better.
Okay. Any others?
Yes, I would have one, and again, thank you as well. This is probably a crystal ball question.
I'm good at that.
As we have great water challenges in Utah, we know that secondary water metering is going to be a requirement in 2035. Do you anticipate that date moving up?
I do. Actually, the mayor and I were talking about that earlier, is I think we're all sensitive to the fact that we love grass, but we're gonna have to be careful about how we use our water to instill and continue propagating grass. And so, of course, we all know that metering leads to constraint. In a state like ours, that is likely necessary, because water is, our children are our most valuable resource for all of us, but water is one of the top resources. And so, yes, matter of fact, we were talking about ARPA funding. The mayor told me it's about $2 to $3 million for you to get metered, and then at that point measuring, and then once you're measuring, then you start to put constraints or added costs associated with if you like to water everything all the time versus you don't water much at all. So is it possible that ARPA funds could be used for that? I think it's definitely possible. What's in the works with that? I'm not part of conversations that way, but definitely I'm invested in not just metering, but what are the best ways that we should be highest and best use of our water in our state, which I think is our people. It should go to the businesses and the people more than other resources. So yes, I suspect that there will be extra funding, because we're all sensitive to the fact that we have a real water problem in this state. Thanks for that question.
So Senator, I would thank you again for your
Good
service
luck on the
and being
campaign,
here.
by the way. I see your signs all over, and it's, how exciting.
Yep, you know the drill, so.
Glad I'm not campaigning this
Yeah,
year.
not yet.
It's next year, but anyway.
So we've had a lot of refugees, a lot of influx in our state. What is the update that you have, if any, of how we've been taking in some of those folks and addressing their needs?
We, as a state and as citizens, reach out with kindness, compassion to the whole world. I also am concerned, however, in the middle of a pandemic, that we're bringing individuals who, are they properly vetted? The federal government assures us that they will do a good job on that. The federal government promises many things that they say they're good at, and Medicare, as a guy who lives in the Medicare world regularly delivering those services, Medicare is a behemoth, a Byzantine system that is really not well run. And so can they run refugee services well? I have deep concerns about that possibility. Governor Cox has opened his arms to that possibility, which is beyond my purview in the state legislature, except for the governor needs funding from the state legislature to activate some of these efforts. And many of these refugees, as you likely know, they do end up in Salt Lake County. And their children, mostly from what I understand, these are men without families, which I have questions about that too. Where are their families? Do they have families? Are they single? I don't know. But each one, I would presume, health-wise, pandemic-related concerns, and are they thoroughly vetted as to any connections to concerning groups throughout the world? These are things that I would expect our governor to hold deep reservations as well, and that when we bring these people in and deliver to them the services that we hope to deliver, that we're making sure that these are people that will be excellent citizens of not only our state but also our country, and that we will all grow as a result of the opportunity to have these individuals in our state. So I've had initially, with the announcement by the governor that he opened his arms to this, I had concerns expressed by some, but I think most people, considering we reach out all the time, all over the world, as we send missionaries from from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints all over the world, that this state is a really interesting state, willing to reach out. At the same point, I think we ought to be careful, and I will make sure that if this is being done, which as you know it is being done, that it's done carefully and safely, with the federal government not the only protection as to these people's health and also their intent and desires to being citizens of the United States as well as citizens of Utah.
I have a question, if you don't mind, Senator. I thank you too for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Federal government is just more and more placing mandates on states and by implication cities. Does the state have a solid plan? Have they had discussions as to at what point the state just says enough, we're not going to do it? You can't require us to do it, although I'm sure there's some ways that they could make it very untantalizing if you didn't do it. But what kind of discussions are going on in that realm? Is just getting to the point where it's past ridiculous, honestly.
So we're almost 2 weeks, this Thursday it'll be 2 weeks into the Biden announcement. I presume you're talking about the pandemic mandates on employers more than 100. Yeah, and in fact, that relates to local control versus state control versus federal control. As regularly, the state is foisting its intent on you, and I don't see that as any better than the federal government foisting its intent on the state. So really, who should be in charge of our citizens is our citizens. And it should be moms and dads with their families. It should be mayors that if we've got a problem with this city council, the mayor, they know where you people live. And they know where I live even. They can come over to our houses, knock on the door and say, I'm concerned. I'm willing to give you out my cell phone. Go ahead and give a call. Try to give a call to our federal representatives. They won't answer them. Why? Well, they got so many people. But in addition, well, there's a lot of reasons why they might not give out their cell numbers. But my point is local control is what I've been about for now the 7th year, and I intend to maintain my public service in that same circumstance. I think you, Mike, are better at managing these things than would be, God bless Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci and the CDC. But I think you can make decisions for your health and well-being better than some body at the top of the chain who's telling you how to take care of these things. So is there a plan? We had conversations, and actually the Senate's been really interesting from the House, but the House does not normally close their caucus. The Senate does close their caucus. We speak frankly in the House majority, which is the Republican majority, every time we speak openly and frankly about our intents. And Senator Adams, who is our Senate president, wanted the caucus position of what do we think about these mandates that have come down. And you've seen the Deseret News. There was Brad Wilson, Speaker of the House, Stuart Adams, Senate President, Governor Cox, in concurrence, is that we're all concerned with the federal overreach. Whether you like vaccines, whether you like the mask, whether you think this is good or not, the reality is that to step into that personal health decision and try to tell people what to do, I know there's lots of people that want that. I've heard from them. At the same point, I think you good people, the people that are listening, are more than capable of making these decisions. Although a lot of doctors are very interested in just telling you what to do, and like a child, you should obey what they say. Okay, well, that's dictatorial, and I've never been that kind of doctor. I'm not planning on being that kind of doctor either. So Sean Reyes, Attorney General, is working on this. I understand there's 24 states that will be filing suit.
I was going to ask you that.
Our courts,
litigation.
the problem is the Supreme Court is now the sole arbiter of most of these decisions. Why? Because all of this has to be declared constitutional or not. So, yeah, I'd support a lawsuit. Vaccines or not, you can kind of debate and discuss that. I got a lot of thoughts about that. But I believe the state has the right to make those determinations. So whether it be, in this case, Attorney General Reyes, whether it be us passing laws in the state legislature, and then what happens to those laws? Federal preemption is you can't do that because the feds have stepped in. Okay, where's that gonna go? To the courts. And it starts in a district court, goes to an appellate court, and finally rolls up to the Supreme Court. So I expect a lot of litigation, which is sad. Joe Biden ran on a unifying, we're gonna work together, we're all gonna defeat this together, until you disagree with him, and then he's gonna come into your living room and tell you what to do. So, okay, well, if you support that, I don't. I don't find it very unifying to foist a bunch of litigation onto our citizens, but I guess he thinks he's losing his patience with little boy Mike Kennedy and just wants to tell me what to do. I find the president should be a very patient person because he's got 350 million people to take care of. So that's my approach to things is we're in the legislature ready to respond, but this is all going to be determined in the courts, not in state capital legislation.
Thank you.
Thanks for that question. It's a good one.
Anything else? We good?
Thanks so much for coming.
You've got a busy agenda, and I'm happy to turn you over to that, but please be in touch if you need anything from me.
Could you see me outside? I got a little pain in my shoulder.
Yeah, just across the street, we got an x-ray machine I can help you with. Thanks for the cookies, by the way.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
Have a
you.
good rest of the day. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, Chief Sanderson and Chief Earl, thank you for being patient.
Mayor and Council, thanks for your time and allowing us to do this third quarter update. I've asked Chief
You can pull another
Myers.
seat up, yeah, get all three up here.
And keep that microphone close.
One administrative change I wanted to just, I've asked Chief Hurst, he's a big hunter, so he's out of town, but Chief Myers was available. Administratively, these guys were administrative battalion chiefs. In July 1, we adjusted their positions to be assistant chiefs, to separate and have that delineation between our battalion chiefs that oversee the platoons and run the day-to-day operations. These guys are in the office and helping Chief Earl and I just perform the administrative stuff. So both of them received promotions. Chief Myers handles mostly our EMS side of stuff, where Chief Hurst handles the fire side. And so that's just one of the administrative changes I just wanted to update you with. And with that, I'm just gonna turn some time over to our Deputy Chief Earl. He's gonna cover some of our fire statistics and then questions you may have regarding any incidents in Lindon. And Chief Myers will cover the EMS side of our response to your community.
Thanks, Chief. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Hope all is well. And so I'm just going to cover some of the fire responses for the last 2 quarters. From April to June, for Lindon City responses from our Station 34 over here was 45. And that's not, just to clarify, that isn't all just fires. It's everything related to fire. So it's carbon monoxide alarms, it's smoke detectors, it's fire alarms, automatic alarms, sprinkler activations, that kind of thing. Helping people if they've fallen in their home or something to that effect, that we're helping them up. So that includes those calls as well. 2 calls of significant that we went on. I was discussing, just having a conversation with Councilmember Powell just outside on the way in, was a young adult female that got stuck on a cliff up Dry Canyon on September 15th. That was last week. Happened fairly late at night. Looks like it was about 8 o'clock in the evening. And our crews were out and about. They happened to see the call come across on our CAD system. So they weren't initially dispatched to it, but they saw it on the CAD and responded up. So they were up there in about 4 minutes, and a young lady was stuck on a cliff and felt like she was going to fall. And so they initiated the emergency response system when they were up there, and ended up being that Utah County Search and Rescue, Provo Rescue Squad, and Pleasant Grove Fire come out to help us get her off the mountain, and the Utah County Search and Rescue ended up going up and helping her off the cliff, and so she was not injured. She was safely taken off the mountain. The other call was in last in August, was a fire up Dry Canyon, I believe. Your city manager, Adam, knows about this one as well. As we secured, that one was just a small, little less than an acre. It took about 7 minutes to get up to that one. It was actually on Forest Service property. We contacted the state and, of course, the Forest Service to respond to that one. They come out really quickly. We initially set up an incident command model that would last, be prolonged over a few days, anticipating a fire of that nature this time of year would take us that long. However, when we got the first hand crew up from the state of Utah and the Forest Service, they were able to suppress that fire with a hand crew within that day. So we were able to get that taken care of fairly quickly. We did secure the water, thank you, near the equestrian park in your city as well, to have an opportunity for the helicopters and the aircraft to be able to dip into that if they needed to, but they didn't need to throughout the day. So those are the two of significance. And then on the fire prevention side, and I need to tell you that it's actually a pleasure working with your planning division, Michael in particular. We work with him reviewing plans frequently and doing some inspections, and we have a very good working relationship, so it's just nice working with Michael, thank you. And I met Mary this evening as well. So we conducted about 66 inspections since April, new fire inspections, and then assisted with roughly 40 plans for review. And that's when they call us up asking about water supply and fire department access and that sort of thing. And so those things we're happy to assist with anytime we can. And our firefighters love working out of that beautiful fire station across the parking lot. So that's all I have for fire. So unless you have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Chief Myers.
I do have one question.
Sir.
Years ago, Provo had a program, and I'm not sure, I haven't kept up with this. Does the...
Your
fire
mic
department-
more? Mike, can you talk into the, thank you.
Thank you. Does the Orem Lindon Fire Department have a program where they give smoke detectors to families? Or do you have any kind of program like that, or?
No, we don't, but we're working on putting together some programs that would involve that.
Or perhaps they could get them at a reduced cost or something?
Oh,
just
sure,
to-
yeah, we used to have a program that we would take smoke detectors out to families that needed them. It's been several years ago since we had a program like that. And of course, anytime we got around to talking about resurrecting that program, then the pandemic hit and really kind of suppressed that activity. But we've been having discussions about resurrecting that program again, sure.
You can let them know what we're doing with fire extinguishers for Fire Prevention Week.
Oh, yeah, we did have, we're having Fire Prevention Week on October 2nd through the end of that week. On Monday evening, October 4th, we're having a fire safety night at our city park. We're just having a few activities from live fire demonstration to an extrication demonstration. We're also having a few events for kids. We're also having a fire extinguisher demonstration where our citizens are able to come out and learn how to operate a fire extinguisher safely.
Great.
And we'll have we actually had a local business donate, how many, Chief, do you remember?
Well, we asked for 20 fire extinguishers. It was a contest within their own tenants. A challenge to produce or provide one fire extinguisher per business, but we're hoping to see 100 that will then be raffled off during this fire
Yeah.
prevention evening.
Actually raffled off and given to them in conjunction with our fire extinguisher demos and teaching them
October
how to use
4th,
those.
where will that be located?
It's got the Orem City Park. It's
Orem
just
City
right behind the city campus, city center campus.
And I can also attest to the fact of how helpful you've been to the extent I've attended the DRC meetings. Been very helpful, the information you provided to potential developers, potential projects. I think it's a good thing you attend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're happy to be there for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I have one quick
ma'am.
question. So each year during, fireworks season, we have the foothill areas, neighborhoods, we don't allow fireworks. But I've had a couple residents with concerns in the foothills, specifically where it's outside of Lindon City's jurisdiction, and it's actually the Forest Service. Sometimes there's fireworks you can see littered up there, or campfires are allowed. Do you have any concerns about that, or anything that we should or could do regarding fire danger in that portion of the hillside?
Absolutely. The fire restrictions, although are city regular and exist within city boundaries, they exist within Forest Service and state properties as well. And so those are what are considered red burn areas, which means they can't have any campfires or fires of any nature, and that or fireworks of that nature. And so how we've been assisting with mitigating that is we've been setting up brush fire patrols on peak areas. Like during this past season, we set it up on the 4th of July or the 24th of July, where we actually dedicated 3 brush trucks which are smaller than regular fire engines, to patrol those areas. So as far as helping prevent, preventing wildfires, right? And as far as preventing that from happening, we do the best we can to get the word out and get the restrictions out and help people understand the dangers of the fire season. But ultimately, it's their responsibility to follow those rules.
Yeah, the last conversation I had with the ranger was that campfires were still allowed technically, and I don't know if signage could be put up or.
Oh, absolutely. And we, along with that, we post what the restrictions are with the state, and the state has the maps that are mapped out as far as where you can have fires, where you can't have fires. But we can certainly produce more documentation, more literature, and send it out electronically and hard copy, absolutely.
Okay, up there at the trailhead and whatnot
Sure,
could be
yeah.
helpful. Okay.
Absolutely.
Chief Earl, one
Yes, ma'am.
question and one comment. Did you happen to say how the Dry Canyon fire started, the little fire up there?
I did not say that, and it was ultimately undetermined, if
Okay.
that makes sense. But they were feeling like it was human caused.
The weather was, there was nothing, it seemed like, that morning to have caused that.
No, there weren't any.
Yeah,
In
it was a
fact,
very
the
clear
fire
morning.
was reported by a retired battalion chief flying over working on life flight that morning.
Oh.
And so they spotted it up in Forest Service property. And then the Forest Service actually provided their investigators to go investigate it. And last word I got that it was human caused, but they didn't have a definitive answer. But there wasn't any weather that evening with lightning or anything like that to start it.
Well, we're grateful it ended as quickly as it did, so.
Oh, yeah, and those hand crews are pretty remarkable. You put them
Yes.
to work and they do a good job.
Yes. And then my comment is, and this is part of my staff report, but I ran into Chief Earl as we were coming in and asked about the incident with the hiker. I happened to be coming home that Wednesday evening and heard sirens everywhere, thought maybe we were going to have another fire, but looked out the window and there was nothing. But and then turned on the scanner and could hear the dispatcher talking about this woman. She only had 1% power on her phone still left, and she was using her flashlight, and I actually looked out my back window or on my back porch. I could see her. This is above a citizenship park, and the location for this, about 900 East. And so I can't imagine being up there trying to make sure people could get to you. She did turn off her light, and they were able to get to her. But to hear both ends of the little wondering how this woman fared, and I got to have an update that she was able to get off fine, but to know that capable staff were taking care of that. So kudos to all of you for making sure, and also your colleagues. So thank you, Chief Earl.
Sure, thank you.
Do you guys know Troy Wolf with the search and rescue?
The name sounds familiar.
I'm just
I
wondering,
can't
you
put
got a
can't put
call on
name to
that while
face.
we were doing the drill?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so.
yeah.
Let me just make one comment. If there's ever a day or a moment where you hear the sirens, you have questions on calls, if you want to channel those questions through Adam, he can email us and we will return some information or some follow-up relatively as quick as possible with whatever information, so you can be informed, just so that you have that information if your citizens ask. So don't hesitate to channel that through Adam, and then he'll
I
forward
was
that
able
to us.
to get some information from Chief Brower, who was able to find out that it had ended well enough, but I didn't get too many details, so
Okay,
thank you so much.
yeah, good.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
So thank you for this opportunity. My name is Lon Myers. I am the Assistant EMS Chief. EMS stands for Emergency Medical Services. So anything medical-wise, that's kind of my forte in the area that I kind of look after with the fire department. And I must say that I do have a fondness for Lindon. I really cut my teeth here as a captain. I was one of the captains that opened up the station here in July of 2008.
The Granny House.
That's right, Grandma's house.
Grandma's
right?
house,
Yep, and it's been great. So wonderful place to definitely work. So I do have a interest there. So for the quarter 2 of this year, this is April 1st of this year to June 30th, the fire department has answered 137 calls for medical service. Now this includes traffic accidents as well. So as Chief Earl said, fire's fire, but it also includes CO anything that's not basically those two things, that would fall under this category here of this number here of 137 calls for quarter 2, and that's April 1st to 6:30. And then quarter 3 is July 1st of this year, running to today, 9/20. So we still have like 10 days left of this quarter. We're at 129. So you can almost set your clock by that. It's pretty dang close, right? And so, like I said, these are medical calls, everything from chest pains, shortness of breath, allergic reactions, to traffic accidents out here on State Street and anywhere else for that matter. So those are our numbers. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Just a quick question on all those calls. Do you guys track response time? How are we doing on that? Is it getting better, worse?
We do track response time, and that's something that we're actively working on. And those numbers are getting better. So response time is essentially from when we hear the tones in the station to getting out that door into the respective ambulance or fire truck and getting to that scene, whatever that is, a house or an address on a street. And so those are very important numbers to us, and those are tracked, absolutely.
Can you share any of those?
Well, I don't have like an average number. I don't have that. I can share it. Do you have?
Not tonight, but I'll definitely generate a report that can show the update to the last report I gave, that study that showed we were significantly behind in our response times, and it really was what we attributed it to was just the way the system we were charting was coming in, because or you get the behavior you monitor, and so when the guys know that response times is one of our main focuses on delivering our services, they get out of the station quicker. And so if it's just as simple as sending that email that 90 seconds is our goal from getting toned out to being out of the station, that's 24 hours a day. That's in the middle of the night when they're sound asleep, or if they're just at the dinner table eating, 90 seconds is the goal. And I would say that over the last 2 quarters, we're gonna be pushing really close to those times, which I'll provide Adam in this week, and he can share those with you guys.
Great. I remember that commitment that you guys had made. I was just curious to see how the progress had come along.
Absolutely following up on it.
Well, thank you for the service that you render. There you go. Thank you for the service you render to our city and our sister city as well. I know that this station's service is north and Lindon, so we appreciate that. Keep up the great work.
Win-win. Thanks, guys. We love rubbing shoulders with your guys. I see them out in the community all the time. And
Yeah.
I do have one
They're
odd
awesome.
question. At one point, we were 35, right? And now we're 34?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just wondering when that happened, why, and it's just a curiosity.
When we figured out how to count.
We moved up in the rankings.
We're improving.
So, I mean, when I first stepped in, I always questioned, I had some history as the fire chief in Pleasant Grove. We always questioned why Lindon Station was 35. Orem had purchased property to build a Station 4. We still have the property. We're still looking at building a 4th station, but we don't have one. And so when I stepped in, I'm like, Lindon's our 4th station, so.
We are
it just
34.
made sense. That
So
was the change.
35 just is not there any longer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Next station will be 35.
thank you.
So if you're ever in Trivial Pursuit, you've got the backside story. You know how to answer it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go to council reports. Yes. It sounds like we've partially done those, I think. But Randy, you want to finish up on yours, or?
Thank you very much. First off, I want to say thank you to my fellow council members, because although I had a long list of things to ask Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, you all asked the other ones, so thank you. So nice to serve with people who are so like-minded, and I appreciate you all. First off, the drill, which was wonderful. There was 2 of you that couldn't make it, so if you'll pass those down. We have some badges that you can keep in your car for emergency purposes from Mike and Carolyn. And so I want to make sure that you got a hold of those. And then wanted to comment that the Tabitha Way boxes are looking so much better. Thank you for whoever reached out. They're nice and tidy.
I'll give Heath those kudos, I think,
Okay.
so.
They're looking nice and
He was
tidy.
taken on.
Speaking of what's going on at the community center, we know that Holy Cow starts tomorrow. It'll be a fun week there. Talked about the rescue. Okay, so I'm not sure who we can talk to. I know there's somebody here that could help us with some of it, but the weeds along State Street are getting out of control along the sidewalks. So I'm not sure who helps us with that.
Can you email me the specific addresses that you're seeing?
Okay,
And then I'll get those to who needs to handle that.
okay.
I had a citizen reach out as well on a State Street property. I'll send one as well.
Okay. And then Carolyn brought this up before, but it's still in disrepair over at Walmart. I know we've complained about this before, but the fencing over there along State Street is just
That
horrendous.
corner looks
It looks,
horrendous.
Yeah,
The weeds are waist high
The
and
property, I want you to know that, that is Walmart's property, and so we've communicated with their store manager, but that's been a recurring issue over a number of years, and so I'm tempted to ask them to just remove the fence, because it happens a lot.
right.
there are weeds right out in where you join the crosswalk, and I don't know if that's a UDOT area or a city area, however,
I'll have to look at that
that
one.
are really quite high.
Okay.
And, go ahead. Go ahead. So thank you, Randy, for bringing that up.
Thanks. And then we had the engineering meeting, but we had to cancel that. And I mentioned this mainly because Trent and his wife, they had a new baby. So that's a nice little new thing down at the engineering department. And then, I've been noticing lots and lots of signs. Just want to say good luck to all of the candidates and glad it's not me this year. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Get to
Okay, Van?
watch us sweat.
I do have a question about the Walmart thing. I know we want to be discreet, we want to be good neighbors and stuff, but their landscaping inside their parking areas is pretty. not
When they originally came in, they had a tree plan, and the trees have never been replaced, and they're just rock
Yeah,
now in
and the
all
bushes that they
in their
have
areas.
they're not necessarily ornamental bushes, they're just kind of,
There's just a complete lack of,
yeah, it's just no
Vegetation and
maintenance or
maintenance.
care or whatever.
So Mike, do you want to reach out and schedule a meeting for you and I to just have a conversation with them and see what we can do? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not be difficult, but again, just
Yeah,
encourage them, make
just-
it look nicer, could look nicer.
I mean, they're a good community partner. They typically donate funds to a lot of different things. And
Sure.
so the approach is more, how can we work together to
Yes.
maybe get to a better place? Okay, Van?
Just two water comments. Attended the North Union Canal ongoing discussion on September 16th. That's with the Central Utah Water Conservancy District as we discuss the different options and plans. Still looking for some water loss studies to come back, but like I'd mentioned last time, we anticipate some pretty big changes will probably be coming there. Just kind of in follow-up with my question to Senator Kennedy, 2035 is the requirement for the secondary metering. And according to Central Utah Water, more funding is coming to the state through various funds, COVID things. And those dates are going to move up, and I just wanted to get his feel, and that seemed to be the same thing. And then September 22nd, I will be to the Provo Bench Irrigation meeting that I'll attend, and we'll give you a report back on how that goes. All interconnected.
Yeah, I was at a Utah Lake Commission meeting what's today, Monday, last week. And the state water representative indicated that, not that we're in a great position, but considering how the summer was and the heat, we're actually in a better position than they thought they would be at this time. Most of the reservoirs are at 50%, which is good considering the heat. And some of the upper storage areas are at about 85%.
Yes, and we have water banked
Yeah.
in Deer Creek, and it looks like we will keep some of that in the bank this year, which is a good deal.
But keep praying for snow, a lot of snow, more snow than you've ever seen in your life. That'll be good, so.
We need,
Go ahead, Jake.
A couple quick items. The Pleasant Grove Lindon Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament. Lindon City was well represented. Thanks for those who were able to come. Well represented from a staffing standpoint. We had 2 teams, but also from a business standpoint. A lot of Lindon businesses there. We had a full tournament. It was a lot of fun. So thanks to all those who participated. Had a great conversation with Adam. Sales tax numbers are looking great, specifically industrial users in the construction industry. So just something to keep in mind as we look at zoning, as we look at different things. Those users are quickly rising up the ranks of our top 10. So exciting, great news. Quickly from Heath. Our slide's doing great. About 2 weeks out, right, Heath? Lot of events going on. This number knocked me off my seat. Our fall activities from Little Lindon City. I want everyone to think, what number of activities do you think our Parks and Rec program is putting out for Little Lindon City? The number is, anyone want to guess?
Probably more than Heath's wife would like, but.
Exactly. We are doing 43 different activities this fall. That's incredible, Heath. Incredible job from our Parks and Rec department. It is a wide variety of programs for different types of users. 2 in particular are a highlight. October 1st, there's a movie in the park to give out free pumpkins. It's great. I go every year. My kids love it and look forward to it. And then our block party, which has been a hit. Adam, I think, dressed up last year as Van Halen. No, as
Didn't do it last year, but
the year before
Willie,
that.
Willie Nelson
Willie
may have been
Nelson.
seen around, so.
You know, same category. October 29th for that. We're looking forward to it. So I think an email went out if anyone wants to do a trunk or treat that be open. Is that open to the council as well?
Sure, you bet.
I think that's something that would be a lot of fun. So that's all I have. Thanks, guys. Good job, Ian.
So Heath, are we gonna do a polar slide dive when the slide's ready?
I don't know if you are, but I am.
Glad to hear it. Okay. Mike?
Thank you. Not a whole lot going on, but it's sort of everything's on maintenance, but Mike and I know Carolyn was invited, I'm not sure what your responses were, but on the 22nd, we have a meeting up at Thanksgiving Point, I believe it is.
Just our EDCU.
Yeah, the EDC. And then later in October, we have another meeting. What's that, the UC?
Urban Land Use Institute.
Urban Land Use Institute will be attending, so I'm sure we'll learn some interesting things there. I've got nothing to gain from this personally, but I will say that I continue to be so impressed with how well our planning department and all of those good folks, how responsive they are. It's clear that they're very well respected, very well regarded when developers and contractors or whoever just come in. The feedback I get is that they just go the extra mile to help. They're not looking for problems, they look for challenges, and they're always good to come up with potential solutions, and very great to work with. And so I see that, so I'm confident that, those that deal with them, so I appreciate that personally.
I hear it from businesses all the time. We are a great city to work with on behalf of the businesses.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that.
I feel blessed to be able to work with them, so. Then we talked a while ago, Adam, about Home Depot building some buildings just right to the north there, doing some real estate development. Am I?
On the vacant corner property to the northwest, there was a site plan approved for kind of an office warehouse development. That is pending. They've had some delays, and we've had some interest from another auto dealer, which we're hoping will fill that spot. So we'll keep you posted as we hear more on that. The dealership has made a backup counter offer as a backup offer on the property, so.
Yeah, well, the car wash and so forth is going in, and it's gonna look all really nice when it gets all done and everything, so. Transfer station, again, we're just on autopilot, auto control. We don't have a lot going on. We're in the middle of our master plan study that we've commissioned, and there'll be some good things come out of that. And again, at some future point, we'll have Neil Schwindeman come down and visit with probably the mayor and Adam, but then make a presentation to the council as to what some of the ideas are down there. So, and with that, I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, Carolyn?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to acknowledge, I know it's been some time since we met, but several of us attended John Colson's funeral, and I just wanted to acknowledge what a beautiful service it was, and it was wonderful and uplifting, and he had such an exemplary life, and I hope Kristen is doing well. Hopefully you can send our love to her as a council. With this, must be a very hard life change. But that was an honor to be able to attend. The PG Chamber, we had our golf tournament last week. How did y'all do in the end?
I was on the bank team and we got 4th place, so we feel really
Not
good
too bad.
about it.
How did our city staff do?
Well, there were 4 teams, so you
Yeah.
shouldn't feel too good about it.
Oh,
2nd place?
good job. Good show.
Let's just say we got a gift card for one team to go take some practice lessons with the car.
They give a last place prize, and I think we took one of them home, right?
Well, good.
It was fun.
Great. Well, yeah, Jake and I were there the day before stuffing bags, and it was a great turnout and support from our local businesses. And so we're excited to have such a healthy chamber group and a lot of great things happening there, a lot of good education happening for our businesses and uplifting the community. So last time I had mentioned that I had attended the Utah Lake Symposium, and I forgot to pass these out to y'all, so if you'd like to see these quick summaries, I won't go over that again. And then also just prior, so our 9/11 drill, one of the big pushes that was really important for that was to see if we could get more Everbridge adoption. And Adam was so good to give me a number just the day before. Did we have a little uptick in?
As of Wednesday night, we had, you know what, I'm gonna have to look that up here. I'll give that to you later. I think it
Okay.
was about 55 that had been
That
added.
night, you said it was right around 50 on that night.
Yeah,
And there's
so-
been some trailing, I'm sure.
There has, and
Okay.
we have really good penetration on that. I mean, there's over 1,300 already signed up, and so when you consider our households, that's about every other house has signed up, and so.
So good. It sounds like that was a great success. And then also continuing, I'm sure all of you got the emails from the residents that are concerned about the pickleball noise in Hollow Park. I went and visited several parks that are doing pickleball in Orem, as well as our neighbors here in Pleasant Grove. And it appears that the Acoustablock material seems to be fairly standard item that they're putting in these pickleball courts now. It is an investment, but I would love to see as our staff comes forward with some suggestions here that we are open to exploring and making that investment so that the residents there can be less impacted. You know, some of them feel they cannot enjoy their out of doors areas, and the pickleball starts very early in the morning, 6 a.m., goes till 10 p.m. with the lights. So I would love to see some support to make that move. It seems, like I said, to be a fairly standard amenity that goes in with these new courts now because of the noise. So, and with that said, really quickly, we had a tree board meeting, and the tree board did identify different species and trees in some places that they could also plant some things to help with that as well. And then upcoming, the Utah League of Cities and Towns. Are any of my fellow council mayor planning to attend the conference coming up? I know the deadline.
I'm
just went up.
attending it.
Yeah. Okay.
Out of the country.
What's the dates on that?
September 29th through October 2nd.
Next Wednesday,
So it's coming up
Thursday,
fairly soon.
Friday.
Yeah, up in Salt Lake City. All right, just a friendly reminder with that. There's always great education with that. So, and that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Adam?
Quickly, Mike, you want to introduce Mary to us?
So we are lucky to have Mary Barnes with us. Mary started 2 weeks ago.
welcomed by you all, so thank you.
Where are you from?
I was born in Australia.
I was going to say, it's totally Australian. I mean, my mission president was from Australia, and so it's, what part of Australia?
Near Brisbane, it's called the Gold Coast.
Okay.
Yeah. It was fun.
Well, welcome to Lindon City. We're happy to have you.
I'm so excited to be here.
Everything else is in your staff report. I'll let you read through that.
You're so good, Adam. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to anyone here for open session to address the council? Something that's not on the agenda? Okay, we'll move on. Let's go ahead and move on to review and action on the city center roofing project. Former Mayor Dane is not here.
He is not here. Let me get to these photos here really quick. So he did ask that I show a photo of what the building looked like before the roofing faded. And so he felt like we weren't giving it full credence. So there's the image of that metal seam roofing. What's being discussed here, as we've mentioned in the past, the roofing on the exterior, the metal roofing has started to fade. The paint powder coat has come off, and then we've got some areas in the back that we've got a couple small leaks, and then several of the screws are backing out. So we had 3 different bids on received, and had Alex Roy Lance is our facilities and fleets manager in here if you had questions. He solicited from several companies. We received 3 bids from Liberty Roofing, Red Peaks Roofing, and A1 Roofing. Asked for bids on both shingles and the metal roofing, and then replacing the gutters. You had asked before, we did bring in a sample board right there by you, Carolyn, is the sample of the architectural shingles that we had looked at. On those specific brand that were bid out, it's a 40-year commercial life is what Owens Corning has on those. So the pricing on this, based on this, we had actually budgeted $50,000 in our budget this year to do roofing repairs. And that was before we had received some of these numbers. And so based on what is budgeted currently, our staff recommendation was to consider the shingles. You could re-roof that twice for the price of the metal. Mayor Dane was mentioned. He felt strongly that the metal seam roofing should be replaced back to its original look in this fashion. And then you did ask for a Photoshop, if we could do that, of what it may look like with the shingles. And so I did my best on that one. So we just need your direction on this, how you want to proceed. Your options, we can repair the back. We do have to remove a couple panels of the aluminum roofing. Is that correct, Alex?
All the penetrations when they were put in, the ceiling around them was substandard, and so all the rubber is starting to degrade, starting to leak. So all those are going to have to be replaced and repaired. So that we'll have to address some of those panels to do that. We did get a bid for that. Just that particular work is about $2,500 just to fix those. So that would take care of the immediate need that we need to address before winter comes in.
How much would that repair? I mean, 2,500, that gets us through the winter. Are there a lot of repairs? How much time does that buy us?
Well, that's just gonna repair the leaks that are there now. That's not gonna do anything to help the
look.
The look, and the paint is gonna continue to come off that roofing. The screws are gonna continue to back out, and those problems. That's just gonna make sure that we don't have any more leak issues hit us this winter.
On this air photo, Jake, those are primarily around these vents in those 2 spots on the back side of the building.
So is it the vent flashing has failed at this point?
Those
We're just done
rubber
proper-
gasket types of flashing that you slide over
Right.
the pipes.
They put the gaskets they put on were meant for a shingle roof, not for a metal roof. So they're not installed properly, they're not what should be there. And it's just a low-grade material that shouldn't be there in the first place, and it's starting to decay.
What's the condition of the rest of the roof? Is it in terrible condition? Is it in?
The
just
roof
faded?
itself is not leaking, so we're not seeing those problems. It's just that once you get the paint off that metal, then you're gonna start seeing the metal's gonna degrade. And over the course of time, we're gonna see that metal start to just oxidize and rust and fade away, and then we will have.
Alex, that's called a patina.
Patina if it was copper.
So Mayor Dane had some comments he wanted to make about using the original material versus going with
He was the
asphalt.
architect on this building
Right.
and felt very passionately that the metal seam roofing was part of the character of the building. And he made the comment that putting on the architectural shingles makes it look like a residence, is what he felt. So,
I spoke with Mayor Dane about this as well, and where I don't, the cost is important to all of us. I'm not thrilled with the options that's been brought to us, especially the thought of putting a black roof on this building seems to be aesthetically unpleasing to me. I've mentioned the, I'm not sure the name of the what is it? There is, it used to be, I think it's Sunrock now, it's a nursery that's on 1200 North State Street. It's the one that I could find that had the most architectural shingles that was appropriate maybe, because like Adam has pointed out to us before, a lot of businesses don't have anything but a flat roof. Oftentimes it has a more architectural feeling to it, and it's a more of a brown hue with variations. And I know Van can probably speak more to what type of shingles you use in your particular profession, but there are variety that have a more substantial look to it, and I'm assuming that the price would go up on that one. But I know that Mayor Dane was concerned about not having the ability to repeat our themes. I would still want to go towards the seamed metal roofing, but if the council were to go another direction, I would say please at least keep the cupola in the seam roof, so it would then have a little bit more of a repeating theme, to not do the top of the building in the asphalt. There might be a good compromise for that, but I also say that a black roof would not be appropriate for this particular building.
is this the building that you were thinking of?
Yes. Sun River, thank you. That's not a good photo of it, but just because it's probably just a Google photo.
Adam, I recall, did you bring up the possibility of doing one material on the back side and another on the front side, or would that be completely?
I don't believe we brought that up.
No, okay.
More discussion?
Alex, had we not had this repair, this $2,500 repair in the back, when do you think you would have been bringing this to us for a new roof?
We had planned for this budget to do something with the roof. Our initial thoughts were just maybe see if we could just repaint it. When we went to some professional painters we worked with and discussed that option, the cost of that, just repainting, was around $40,000, but none of the paint companies would guarantee that coating for more than 2 years, so that seemed
Yeah.
not a viable option. But this has been on my radar for the past few years, especially the past couple years. It's just seemed to, more and more of that coating has seemed to come off, more of the bare metal is showing up.
Well, if it'll make it through the winter, is that your thought? Obviously, we'd need to repair.
$2,500
Yeah, the
repair.
$2,500 we'd need to spend, but would it make it through the winter?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it'd make it through the winter. It's just, a winter of snow and ice on the roof.
Yeah.
We're gonna have.
We're
more
hoping.
issues.
We're hoping for snow and ice.
According to the mayor, this is the biggest one we've ever seen.
We had talked about doing the gutters. Alex brought that up here probably a couple years ago. We've got several bad spots with the gutters, and so when he bid this out, he added that in But it was more of that rapid change just in the last 2 years is when we've lost most of the coloring on some of these areas. And so that's where we were looking at, you know, if we're looking at these different options, it's more aesthetic than anything.
I have a hard time with the asphalt shingles. I think it is not compatible personally with the look of the building. I think it's not a cheap fix, but I think it's not the best fix. I know that the metal is rough and tough $70,000 more, but I'm assuming that we can get, I don't know that we're gonna get 30 years on metal roofing as opposed to the shingles, but.
Metal roofing has probably got about a 40-year warranty on it also. Just so that everybody's aware, metal prices right now, I'm sure Councilman Broderick's very aware, metal prices right now are very volatile. So the numbers that we have, when we got those numbers from the roofers, they said we only guarantee those numbers for about 10 days. Because the market has just been going so
And
crazy.
that was my other thought part I was gonna make too, is if we wait for any length of time, it's anybody's guess as to what it might be. I would feel comfortable spending the additional funds above and beyond the $55,000 to make it look the way it originally looked. And I mean, it's a beautiful building, in my opinion. It's very attractive, and I think when people come by, they'd be a little bit shocked if it was shingles. Just me.
We talk about the gutters at some point, I know that just a consideration, just for us to have discussion. I don't know if Heath, can you help me articulate better about what we've discussed about potentially piggybacking on to what is done? I mean, this is just us brainstorming, and this is just a thought to put out there if possible.
Yeah, we've talked about permanent.
For Christmas light, yeah.
Permanent light fixtures, gutter lights that run around the outside of this building and the public safety building. And if we were doing something on the roof, it might be nice to kind of lump that all in together if the council was so inclined. We have some money this year that would get that done for Christmas lights. It might be all of our big batch today, or this year, but still, for a 10-year or 15-year trim light option, it'd be nice to get it done. Unfortunately, if this roof gets
Try to piggyback and save up the labor of being up there. Also, it's not just a Christmas kind of a thing. It'd be also great for security because you can, the type of lighting that we're considering is type that you can pinpoint it for where it needs to be, and then it's the changeable colors. And those are just some thoughts to think about. So as we're being careful with one and maybe extending over on another, we just want to make sure that we're using every dollar appropriately if possible. So.
Alex, question here. We're wondering, we know that with the shingle price, you're adding $4,056 to get to your $58,500. Does the metal price include gutters, or do we need to add another?
The metal price includes gutters from the two contractors that did bid gutters. The Red Ridge Roofing didn't give us a gutter bid, even though I asked them several times to do so. So I'm just assuming that their gutter bid will match. If I went to another contractor, would probably match that higher price. But we do need the gutters on this building. They're a seamed gutter system. Every single seam is leaking. So they do need to be addressed because that is a problem.
When's the 10 days end?
What's that?
When does the 10 days end?
2 months ago.
Yeah, this is a very old bid.
We're negative.
Yeah.
Negative count now, huh?
So the gutter bids, I've called them back on the gutter bids, and they said that their gutter bids are still there because it's a different material. But for the metal roofing, the bids are pretty, and the availability may be an issue too.
Whether it's sitting in the port waiting to come in.
Yeah, when we can get it here.
So Van, weigh in, what do you think? Wait, try to target the pricing of metal? Or are we at a low or a high, or what?
Trying to target pricing is
Someone said
poor
they had
way
a
to do
crystal ball,
things.
maybe that was Senator Kennedy.
No, I asked him if he had one.
Yeah, that's
Get
right.
back here and look into it.
So for sure, we need to repair those plumbing vents, get that done. I like the idea of the standing seam metal roof. I like how that looks. Using those Christmas lights or whatever we do with that would be good. You know, maybe we just do the repairs this year, budget for the next year, hold it over to get the money that we need for it. Did we reach out to like Southam and Associates, any of those kind of local companies that do lots of metal?
I did a Google search on all the local metal roofers near me. I tried to give every single one of them a call, or two or three. I had several say, yeah, we'll come up and give you a bid. I got no response from them. These are the only three that actually came out and gave me a response.
I know that world really well.
Yeah, we both know that world and we know how they work.
And so if it was me, I would say, let's do those repairs, let's hold the money for there, let's budget more for next year. And I would like to reach out, and if it's me and you together, and get some other bids from some local guys too, not to distract from any of these, but that'd be my thought.
Yep.
That's right where I'm at. I think we make the repairs. I think we make it through the winter. I think we look at this in a full budget rather than it as an amendment to our budget currently. We bring it all in and let's do exactly what we do. And I agree with what's been said that it's got to be the metal roofing. That's where I'm at as well. And I do think that the prices right now on construction are a little bit out of whack, and maybe in a year we're a little more back to normal. Fingers crossed, but
You could be a contractor, you're an eternal optimist.
well,
Lumber pricing
Salesman,
has
maybe.
come down.
yeah.
You know, my last quote on OSB was $40 instead of $85.
80, so
But, so that would be my thoughts. Repairs,
I'm with you.
hold over, budget for the more, and then try to reach out to some more local ones, and I'd be happy to help you do that.
Yeah.
Because I know it's invite, call. Hey, can you meet me here, and I'll walk you through it. That's kind of how I have to do it.
If there's no emergency, it makes sense to just do the repair and then wait until we have the full picture. and
Okay,
budget.
Carolyn, how do you feel? You're good with that?
Definitely. I think keeping the character of the building, according to Mayor Dane's comments, I agree.
Well, you just made Mayor Dane happy. That's
And,
good.
You had mentioned to me that you did call these companies about the lighting, and they did not do those services. Is that correct?
None of the roofing companies will do the lighting, so that would have to be contracted if we wanted to. The thing is, if we wanna do lighting, we need to wait to get the roof done first, otherwise it's just gonna all get destroyed. So,
Right.
we wanna wait till next year, the roof. works
Other
just
places
fine.
then.
We'll have to wait
That's what we were waiting to hear.
Places, yeah.
lighting too, but it's two different, yeah, those two groups don't. Most roofers, if you bring up Christmas lights, will say words you shouldn't say in front of your mother, so they don't wanna do those things.
But one of the things that we may want to do is talk to those lighting companies to
Yeah.
see what power requirements. I mean, we just did some of that lighting in my son's home when we built it. We put the wiring in before during the construction process, which is really easy to do and very, very difficult to do after construction. So we may want to do some coordination there too.
Yeah, and I have-
Christmas lights might wait.
Yes, and we'll just focus our, going with a different area, right, Heath?
Yeah, that's
We just didn't want to go forward not knowing
And I
where our
like those,
directions.
I like those lights as probably the first choice of
Yeah.
money there, but.
Okay, Van,
Sounded like a motion.
not that you have an assignment, but you'll coordinate with Alex, right?
Sure. I don't know if you have any details of what you've sent, plans of the existing roof.
I've met all of them on site that have given us a bid.
So you had them walk and measure type of a thing.
Measure it, and I have just, these were the specs that I wanted to bid you, so we were bidding apples to apples. So, yeah, we can talk about that.
Not that this is a good approach, but maybe we are planning to do this. We want to get the most favorable time slot to do it. So if you have a lull, they may have a period of time that they're not as busy, or, all that discussion can take place and pull the trigger when we need to pull it. Get the repairs done. That sounds good. We good? Go ahead. Someone want to make a motion? It says action.
I'll make that motion. I'll make the motion that we table for now, going ahead and moving forward with a complete redo of the roof. We take care of the improvements of roughly $2,500, and then in the spring, we'll revisit it and budget for the entire project rather than do a budget amendment currently.
I'll second the motion, but do we want to limit him to 2,500 in the motion? Maybe we just say the repairs.
Fi- Fix the leaks.
That's fair.
Okay.
$25.99, you know, give you a little room, a little room.
extras.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion by Mike, second by Jake. Any more discussion? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 9 is a public hearing. Someone want to open that up for us?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second. Oops, sorry.
Motion by Randy, a second by, by Van. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'll abstain from this item for the 100th time.
You're prophetic. You said this is the last, right? I think we've seen this before, haven't we, Mike?
Yeah, I've seen that a couple times, yeah. Ready?
Yep, we're ready. Let's do it.
Thanks, Mayor and council members. Elwood Holdings has reapplied for a zone map amendment, similar zoning, or exact same zoning request as last time for the planned residential development overlay. So the reason you are seeing this again is that our city ordinance 17.04.090 allows the planning commission and city council to consider a zone change within the 6-month period, again, if there's been a significant change in the plan. And so the applicants are proposing a plan this time that shows, they've reduced the overall number of residential units or lots from 71 to 65. This is a density increase from 9.2 units per acre to 8.47 units per acre. So they've reduced the number of townhome units or lots from 58 to 46, and they have increased the number of single-family homes / lots from 13 to 19. When the Planning Commission first saw this, there was a total of 76 units. The last time that the City Council saw this, which you gave a denial to, was 58 townhomes and 13 single-family homes. Sorry. Grab a drink real quick. So with that, I've got the site plan here in front of you. You can see that they have increased the number of single-family homes quite a bit. Again, they increased that from 13 to 19 homes. The commercial is exactly the same. It's 3.81 acres. The residential is a total of 7.67 acres. So a couple things just want to point out. They're maintaining the 300-foot commercial setback with the exception of the road. As you can see, that mirrors the same plan that you saw last time. That road's 33 feet, so it still encroaches in 33 feet. But the last time when we met, the council was more supportive of that, at least a few of you were, to make sure there was a larger common open space. The front setbacks and side yard setbacks are all met. They're a 25-foot front setback. The sidewalk, we do have a sidewalk easement, so the driveway depth will be 20 feet, but you have a 25-foot setback, which is the same as last time. The rear yards are all 30 feet, which is required by the ordinance, with the exception of these townhomes on the interior. Those will have a 8 to 10 foot setback, so they can have a private rear yard for those. There is a 7-foot wall, masonry wall, that will be installed along that north property line, the east property line, the south property line here, and then on the back of the commercial to separate that commercial. The open space requirement is 20% common open space. They're providing 34%. The parking is met by city ordinance. For off-street parking, they're required 16 visitor parking stalls. they're providing 25. So you can see that those are laid out in different locations throughout the development. The Planning Commission asked them to add, I believe, a couple more stalls over here, so they were a little more accessible to those townhomes as well.
So that's what some of that parking is, in between the townhome buildings.
Yeah, like you've got 2 here, 2 there, yeah, 2. So I think the commission asked if they'd add another one there, so it was convenient.
Thank you, because I was counting them before and I couldn't
Yeah.
decide for sure where they all were.
Same requirement will be met that they're required to have trees planted every 30, or in every yard. So they'll be every 30 feet along the back property line. They'll be planted in the back with the single-family homes as well. I included information in your staff report on the traffic study. We went through that quite a bit in some of the previous meetings with both the Planning Commission and the City Council. So let me go to a few of the renderings. The commercial renderings have not changed. Again, these are conceptual. This is what they're thinking right now. The commercial may change somewhat because it's a conceptual site plan, but this is what they're proposing right now is a type for the different commercial buildings. Sorry, I skipped that one too quick. Standalone building. It looks like Alpine Homes is going to be the residential developer if this were to pass. You've got some different elevations for the single-family homes.
Michael, there's actual elevations for this specific, those are type of their work, but if you keep scrolling down, you included the actual elevations for the project. Not to interrupt, sorry. Keep going, you have them listed.
Let's see. Was it these? So I was just going over single-family
Oh, I'm sorry.
first.
I'm sorry, yeah.
So, and then, so those are the single family and then the townhome. Oh, make that larger. So then these would be the renderings for the townhomes. There's 2 different styles. There's this one and then,
You're not doing standing seam metal roofs?
sorry, and then this the second style for the townhomes. I provided the meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting, if you have any questions on that as well. We've put together an ordinance, so if the council is in favor of passing this ordinance, or this zone change, there is an ordinance prepared for you for your consideration. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Amy would be willing to come up to the microphone and answer any questions as well.
I have a few questions. On the wall that, as it comes around that first lower bend next to the church, is that a wall coming north to south?
To here,
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
What type of fencing is that?
It should be because you have
Surrounding
to have
the
a
project?
wall next to anything that's zoned residential. The church is zoned residential.
Okay. You had just not mentioned that, so that was just my question, so just
Yeah.
confirming.
So that is zoned residential, so we do, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's good. And then you mentioned the trees. Trees are in the backyards or in the front yards? I'm just clarifying what the presentation was.
The ordinance just requires trees to buffer the detached single family.
Okay.
So it'd just be in the rear yards.
The rear of the yards?
Yeah, so that requires us to remove the old cottonwoods that are there and then place new trees that aren't cottonwoods back.
So will those, well, I guess that would kind of dovetail with my last question, is on those single-family homes, are those done spec or more custom for the potential buyer, or
So we
probably a
have to,
combination?
right, so there's certain, we have to fit a certain footprint to be able to hit so they'll be, I would kind of consider them a little bit like patio homes for that, but
not necessarily, they'll still have a decent backyard with the side setbacks and everything else. And so Alpine has a large array of options that'll fit in that mark.
Right.
And then they have, within that, they have different parts there. So their plan, Alpine's homes have planned, this is their intention, is that they would sell the lots, people would buy the house, pick out their plan, pick out their thing. So it's not, and
Custom
usually
in the sense of that they get to make those choices based
They
on.
get to make
Within a catalog of.
their choices within there, yes, but they wouldn't be sold. When I think of a custom home, I think of I buy an individual lot and I start from scratch on my home. That's what I think of
Personal
a
choice,
custom.
a personal choice home.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so this is more, however, not all of the homes will just be built and then ready to buy. They'll be sold
First.
at the beginning of the process.
They'll be sold and then a plan is chosen.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
And then on the trees being placed, is this something that is just by the developer, or is this in conjunction with the homeowner so that they know? I mean, I know it's got to be kind of work together between the trees bordering each other. I mean, how much input does the homeowner get on where those trees are placed if it's in their backyard and being it's a limited space?
So
Well-
we require them every 30 feet, and they will just have to meet one of the trees on our approved tree list.
Okay.
That's the way I would imagine that.
So would that be the homeowner that's
And
part of
that's-
that, or is that just the developer?
I'm not sure on that. We'll have to work that out.
Okay. I
These
mean,
are
we
just my
are
questions.
planning on that, just, Alpine Home, or us as a developer and Alpine Homes as a combined effort are in charge of the landscaping and everything else and the improvements. And so we are intending on planning, just going off of the approved list, and that works best for our HOA as well. And, keep in mind of what sheds more, or, all of those things.
And let me rephrase what I said earlier. It may not be that every lot has a tree in the
Right.
back. They're just required every 30 feet.
These are just my questions that have just come to my
I have
mind.
a question for our city attorney. Part of this ordinance requires, the commercial has to come first. I know we're focusing right now on this part of the overlay, but if and when, let's say the commercial did not occur and trigger, what are we left with with this overlay zone? Could it refer back within a certain period of time to commercial?
Our ordinance doesn't provide for that, so once this zone is approved, it would be approved, and the timing would just be based on the development. But you're right, the commercial has to come first. So the residential would be tied to that, but there's no reverter, so to speak, that if it's not done within such an amount of time. This is not a site plan approval that has that time limit on it. This is a zone change with the overlay that would still stay in there, but it would be tied to this concept plan.
Do you still feel confident, Amy, that the commercial development is?
Yeah, so you've tied the ordinance that you won't allow the city, which is smart. It's a little frustrating on timing, but it's smart. 25%, we have to have 25% of our commercial to be completed in order for you to allow us to have a building permit for the residential. And because those are tied together, there's a lot of pressure there for us.
Completed or started?
Just a building permit issue.
A building
Yeah,
permit
okay,
to
that's
be
what I thought.
issued, sorry, yeah.
Building permit on the commercial.
On the commercial, to be issued for that. So we are in full steam. Actually, I have 3 meetings this week on the commercial aspect of this development. The tricky part there in commercial development is usually it's ran by the doors. So everybody, in the past, we've had lots of different commercial tenants that have wanted this commercial in the front. And because of time constraints, we have lost those tenants. And so we're now hopefully going to be able to come back to them and say, okay, we're really ready now, and we'd love to be able to have it. So we don't lose any more commercial tenants that really want to come and have businesses here for it. So I guess the question, your concern of could we get the zone change and then not do anything? It'd be extremely costly for us to just sit on this property and lose. And I contractually am tied to having a certain, I have to have a building permit on my commercial for a certain number of days on my side with Alpine Homes. So it's definitely top concern of ours that we are working on the commercial.
And then my next question is, it was brought up in the Planning Commission meeting by some of the residents that this would be an area they would like to see ADUs not allowed within our purview of 25% within the city, just because if you now have second unit availability, that ups the number of the total impact for the neighborhood. And I think here where we're already increasing the density, that could be a very important mitigation thing that we could do to help the adjoining neighborhoods to not allow accessory dwelling units within these.
Yeah, and what I told the commission was that I wanted to, so that we weren't amending the ordinance multiple times within just a short period, that you've got a presentation tonight with Ivory Homes, and then after that we'd make some decisions and look at amending that.
Okay.
It's not our intention to have ADUs on these, but I can see the city's concern with that, especially that 570 North, the majority of those houses have ADUs in their houses for it, so, or a mother-in-law, but it's not our intention, and some of these properties won't have basements, or I should say the properties on this corner of that, because of the collapsible soils there will not be basements in that property, so it kind of limits.
What part of the property again, Amy?
Yeah, the northeast property, those 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess that's only 5. Those 5 properties won't have basements in there. So, I mean, that's usually an ADU is done in a basement most of the time, unless it wouldn't fit the other guidelines to put a second item in the back for it. You don't have the right footprint for that. So I know that doesn't really solve them, but it's a valid concern to see.
Other questions?
The other question that was mentioned to me was if this were to go forward, upon the time that the residential does begin, could we have some sort of agreement in the development agreement, if it goes forward, that the contractors will not use the neighborhood streets for their coming in and out? They'll just strictly use the State Street portion to come in and out with trucks or materials?
One clarification, we aren't doing a development agreement for this, but we control the road, and so I don't see any reason why we can't, work with the developer and, make sure that's closed.
Yeah, and do you also mean the road that goes out to the church and up to 500 North?
Just
not,
again,
maybe not to going in, that doesn't, going out by the church.
Just the
on our
interior
finger
areas,
part?
the neighborhood areas.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, usually we always, in a construction sense anyway, and most of the vehicles are coming from State Street. I don't see that being an issue of a recommendation. I can talk with Alpine Homes about that for sure.
Right, make sure that they're not impacted with that. And then my last question then is, how are we going to be sure that these stay primarily owner-occupied versus rental if we don't have?
We do have a
condition on that.
This ordinance that we will discuss and come up with. I've been speaking with Amy's attorneys about an appropriate way, and we've got to make sure that we're complying with private property rights, and we're working through that. But there is an agreement in here that we will work together to put restrictions on the rental, whether that's a time restriction or a percentage restriction, we're still working through those. So that is a condition that they will work with us to include those in their CC&Rs.
I think it also might put some ease, like I have those build for rent communities. I have personally developed those in other cities and other states that have been, really needed. But we develop them in a different way. We don't have individual tax IDs. It's all one plat. It's a different type of product. And then the end user and the builder is also building it with that intention. Like we start from day one knowing that it's going to be a build for rent community. This Alpine Homes is not a build for rent community builder. They are a private, a primary home builder for it. So that's not our intention, but that's why we're okay agreeing with
I'd like to
that.
see that that's spelled out with some teeth in it, not just a stated intention. I think that's really important. The main motivation that we even considered this overlay in the first place was, can we create
Attainable housing. Yeah.
housing that's still very nice, but it's going to be for people in Lindon to
That live
be
here.
able to transition into versus, something that becomes majority rental product.
Yeah.
So,
And that will be an official part of the site plan approval.
okay.
Okay, any questions, Mike?
No, sir.
Ben? Okay, public? This is a public hearing, so if you have questions, now's the time to address the council, or I'm not hearing any. So you gotta move.
No, it's like I've got a question. My name's Cole. I live on 378 West, 700 North. And this might be a Brian question. When and how did the city become vulnerable to litigation with this decision? Because it seems like that might be a driving factor to bringing it back onto the agenda earlier than the 6-month embargo beyond a substantial change. And I don't know, might also influence voting decisions. And so I'm just kind of curious about that, how the arc of decision-making might have left the city to being vulnerable in that way, because it seems to shift things from, legislative's not the right word, but like a public space legislative decision to more of like a litigious decision. So that might be a question for Brian, but that's one of my questions. Do you want me to just ask the questions and you can all tackle them, or do you want me to wait for the?
Do you have multiple questions?
Yeah, just.
Brian, you want to address the first one, because it sounds like it's the big L word.
Sure. And there was contact made. We had numerous discussions regarding the litigation, the merits of pursuing litigation. The city felt pretty confident in defending that position. And what happened is, as a part of those discussions, and I can't go into the details of the discussions because they were part of a closed session that we were not allowed to go into. But in general, it was the determination to go back to the drawing board was decided was better than litigation. So a new concept with a lower density was proposed, and we thought that was a better approach than litigation. And I think both sides bought in on that approach.
Sure. Is there, so the city was confident that we could defend it, but sounds like there were grounds sufficient to bring it to the table.
Whenever you get into litigation, there's no guarantee. Any lawyer who tells you this is 100% win
Of course.
is not doing their job. So there's always cost. If we could go in there, even if we're right, we still have to go through the process and expend the time and the resources to make that.
Yeah.
And so those are the things you put into the balances when you decide what's the best approach to address the issue.
Sure, great.
And so those are the factors we considered.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. In line with that, I just wondered from the planning commission meetings, 2 different planning commissioners mentioned that as much as this was intended for a very specific plat, like this chunk of land, there were actually other parts of this city where this zoning overlay could be utilized by the developers, by a developer if they wanted to come in and say, hey, I want to use that overlay. What would prevent those developers from having a similar strategy, coming in and applying for it, potentially bringing up litigation, and have it move forward in multiple places in the city and not just this one place, is the other question I had.
Well, I'll answer that. I think there's a couple things with the ordinance that I personally would like to revisit and tweak. I don't think it's a fully baked, we're learning as we go with it. And so there's different things that I've discussed with planning commissioners, such as, when it's a particularly large or deep, staggering that density that's inherently stated, because there's been some changes at the legislature on, we had up to a certain number stated, but that may not be something that we have as much wherewithal to work with as we did in the past. So I personally am committed to look at this and revisit it, a couple of the areas. That is a concern that I have as well, that we're looking at these two parcels sort of as a first time, and making sure that things are wisely managed, and we don't have too much of coming forward that we aren't prepared to work with. So.
Great.
Well, after well over a year's worth of due diligence, investigation, countless meetings, countless hours of research, discussions, publicly and privately, I don't think when it was first voted down, there really wasn't that much difference. I mean, there wasn't that much dissension or discord or disagreement between the council members. It was just on the finer points of, some people had very strong feelings about this or that and the other. And I think, I look at what Brian said, it's certainly always better to try and work things out. And I think what we were able to do successfully was, as a group, come to a meeting of the minds. The developer was willing to make some compromises that satisfied some of the concerns of some of the council members. And the concessions, if that's the right word, that we had, that we ended up giving were so minor. Don't misunderstand me. The plan was definitely different than what originally was submitted. So I feel that we have basis for re-examining it. But so I think it was that's the way it came down. It wasn't like it was a major thing. Oh no, we've got to consider it again. Again, I think it was just a matter of a few of the finer points. The way the initial vote ended up was a little bit surprising to some of us, but that's okay. The ones that voted no had some specific concerns that weren't major, but again, through a process of discussions and negotiations back and forth, it finally made sense. So if that makes sense to you.
So Mike, can I follow up with the assertion, or at least the implied, that this might be promoted throughout the city? I mean, what is the risk as far as opportunity of potential developers coming in, just to bring us up as a council, the level of concern that might be there, if there is concern?
Yeah, so this always requires a zone change, so it's got to go through the planning commission and city council. It's your legislative process. And then also, when we were drafting the ordinance, we identified, 3 or 4 properties that this could probably apply to. I think, with some of your feedback, we definitely could look at the ordinance again and look at some different options. But the intent was to basically look at just a few of these deep commercial lots that commercial wasn't going to go, 1,000 feet deep, like on this parcel, for example. But yes, it would require a zone change, and so.
So there is some process that it would have to go through. It isn't like they could take this and then all of a sudden put it throughout the city.
Right. I think we've learned some things too going through this process, where we probably wouldn't take as many meetings before to make a decision.
Okay.
So.
To Cole's query there about the planned residential development, I too have expressed all along that I'd like to see this revisited and that we can tweak this, this overlay going forward because there's unintended consequences that we didn't know that were out there potentially. So that's my statement with that.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Any other? Please, come up and state your name and address, please.
My name is Mark Wright. I live at 266 West, 570 North. And with right on the coattails of the discussion you just had, you revisited the density. Is there some possibility of revisiting, closing off and making that into a cul-de-sac? It looks like to me that with the reduced density, you could support the traffic flow without punching through 570.
Any comments or, appreciate the statement. I'm not sure if the council wants to readdress that or if we can.
And
tonight, just legally speaking, tonight, we cannot address that because that takes an amendment to our plan, and that is not on the agenda. So,
and yet the original plan didn't cause it to go through from the very beginning. Anyway, frustrated.
Hi,
Aye.
I am Tracy Stewart. You guys have heard a lot from my husband, Justin. He couldn't make it today, so here I am. He's much better than this, so bear with me. Echoing what he said about the cul-de-sac, if you guys could revisit that, that would be amazing. We moved here. This was supposed to be our forever home. We love our house, our yard. I love everything about it. Many sleepless nights. It's very frustrating. Sorry, I'm like emotional about it because it's where we live, I guess. But to now live in Lindon, living next to, 65 homes is very frustrating to me. Another thing I want to address is the traffic. I think 570 would get 90% of the traffic going eastbound. So I'm not sure what we could do at that point, maybe put a pork chop at that corner. I think all those homes above or the townhomes above and all the homes would go on 570 going eastbound. I don't think a lot would go on 500 North. So if we could maybe just look at the traffic, and I know we talked about basement apartments as well, kind of put in the HOA or whatever, think about not putting basement apartments, so.
That we're committed to.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, so you're seeing none. Motion would be in order to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close that.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Randy, a second by Carolyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's now closed. Okay.
I will make a motion.
Oh, I was hoping maybe a little discussion
Let's-
first or no?
After the discussion, I move to make a motion. Gotta be flexible.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
Just a little discussion up here amongst us.
We're done.
As we know, this has been a long process, very long process. A lot of good comments have been made along this journey. I will say that I have to include everybody in this decision process, that where we're standing tonight with what's before us would not have been there without this process. And so I have to acknowledge all the hands that have been able to make this possible. I am I've not stopped being concerned about 570. I will always be mindful of the impact that it has on that road. But like Brian has said, like our attorney has said, it's not something that's before us this night. It's a matter that's already been closed and taken care of on a prior agenda item that, so there's nothing that I can do or say that will amend that from happening. I know Amy has presented us other ones in the past that have closed that off, and she's been amenable to that. So this is just something that is where I would like it not to impact 570. This is not something that I can lay at Amy's feet, her project at her feet on this 570 at this point, because we have not made it so that she would have to be, and she has shown us that she could have done this in prior council meetings. So that's my feeling on that. Going forward, I wish we could have put this on this, whatever's going to happen tonight, that we would say no ADUs on this project at all, because that would be where I would go. I will just make a commitment to all the citizens to know that going forward, as we are making this amendment going forward, that I will push 100% for no ADUs on this project. And I don't think I'd be the only one to do so. I will echo what Tracy has to say, and I know that we won't be handling it in this measure. We've talked about it at length, but making sure we've got as ample traffic control heading into 570 as possible, to make it as mindful that people actually have a destination to go, whether it's just the ease of where it's going to. And the traffic study showed that 30% would be using, if I read it right, 570. Was it 20%? I think it was 20%.
20%.
20%. I hope that's the case. I know it's 20% more than you have now, but my hope is that if this goes forward, that's all that's impacting you.
And if I could answer, if you want us to evaluate traffic mitigation on that, as this starts coming forward with site plan approval, we'll be glad to sit down with NOAA and our engineering department and see what may work.
I would like to use all the tools in the toolbox for that area. I will say that the L word has been brought up, right? But for me, that has not been an issue in trying to make a decision for me. I've been trying to weigh all the pros and cons. There's been lots of discussion, a lot of heartache, a lot of coming to terms, and so as this goes forward, I will say that if this goes through, I will say that it's the best case scenario of what we have before us, because I have to wonder about what will happen if this fails. I have to worry about what's going to happen to whether it's a commercial. I mean, just it's a big pot of things that could happen. So I have to wonder about that. So I do like what's here. I just, again, wish it wasn't impacting 570, but that's something that's outside the scope of what we're doing tonight. So.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you said, Randy, and likewise, I'm committed to make sure this does not have ADUs, so we minimize, that what it is what we're seeing here at the most, as well as, traffic flow measures, taking those seriously, and, turning, we explored so many different things here. I'm happy to see that the overall count came from 10. Well, actually, it started higher than 10, but what could have been allowed was 10. It's down to 8.47, and it is doing a staggered approach into the neighborhood. And that there's the additional parking stalls. A lot of those things have been created. And the quality of the Alpine Homes renderings there, I hope will bring, a quality of home there that, especially those 19, that will bring in quality neighbors and quality people within our community who have asked to have a place that they could retire down to and own, or kids of, and families have a place for their kids to have a place to start out. So again, I have a very heavy heart. This has been a tremendously, probably it feels like the most difficult issue we've had this past year. It's been so hard. We've had so many comments and so many letters from residents with differing opinions. And I just hope and pray that what ends up here, that we'll have a partner in the developer, that the promises that'll exceed expectations. So that in the end, we can look back on this. And I agree with Randy. I think it's a very real situation that I was just sitting down in a meeting today. The question of density was brought up. And it's interesting that you see other cities don't blink at density of 80 units per acre. And we're looking at now 8.4 overall for this project, which for this community is a big change. And I recognize that it's very difficult. But I think under the scope of what we're looking at here, like Randy said, we're making hopefully the best case we can, because I think if this land sits vacant, there is more pressure coming from the state, where certain entities would say, why is Lindon having a big to-do over 8.47? That sounds unreasonable perhaps for those that are looking for us to contribute to the affordable housing or the attainable housing issues in the state. And there is, Adam brought up to us not long ago that there are a number of bills coming up this spring that are going to speak to that and probably try to continue to take away some of our local control. So I would hate to see this completely go back to the drawing board and then 2, 3, 4 years from now, it's just an intrinsic 20 units per acre. You know, we've limited this to 2 stories. This will be a neighborhood quality development. So, and my heart is very heavy for those that have had sleepless nights and are impacted by it. I hope and pray that it will be something that we've brought it to the best place we can, as we had the pleas from the original property owners to all those surrounding it as far as how it will work out. And I'm committed to continue listening to the residents, and if we can make those final adjustments on traffic, that is something I want to very seriously do and join with my fellow council on.
Good. Thank you. Before I make the motion, I would just like to make several brief comments. First of all, there's no guarantees. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I also am committed to making certain this accessory dwelling unit, the ADU issue, is solved in a way that it won't impact this project negatively. So that commitment I do give. I don't know that I feel a need to justify my decision, other than to say that I learned a long time ago that by making one decision, by default, you make another decision. And someone's not going to be happy. And that was the reality of the situation. And in a very real sense, we were kind of in a no-win situation as far as, and I've been called to task on, it's been no surprise. I've supported this project from the very beginning. In regards to 570, please don't think that I'm callous enough that I haven't thought about it. I haven't had heartfelt concerns. For me, I genuinely believe that the traffic pattern that's been proposed is a good one. And I also believe, in my mind, it always boiled down to a fundamental issue of fairness. I know it certainly affects 7 families, and that's unfortunate, and I do feel in my heart that that's a sad thing. But by the same token, I don't know, I couldn't in good conscience say, well, we're gonna have to let 500 and 600 take the brunt of all the traffic. That just didn't seem right and fair to me. So that was kind of what motivated my thoughts on that. But I genuinely believe, I honestly believe, and only time will tell, but I honestly believe that when this is all in and done, I don't know that we're going to see the negative impact with the traffic that many of us have imagined that it might be. Again, that's just my opinion, but I believe it to be a good one. So I appreciate I've learned a lot from this. I am not by nature a patient person. Years ago, a friend gave me a poster for my birthday that said, "Lord, please teach me patience, and I want it right now." And that's kind of, but I have learned a great deal, and I've learned to have far more respect and compassion for people with differing opinions than mine. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to be good citizens and come out and express their opinions, so. So we ready for a motion, Mayor?
Well, I don't know, Van, do you want to say anything?
I'll be brief. I echo the comments of those that have been made, especially from Randy. Went down all my tick marks, as this has been a long process, and I would say I have fought for things here. And from what it began as to what it is now, I'm pleased with the transition from the half-acre lots into the single-family, into the townhomes. That's maybe the best solution we can come up with as opposed to what could come there. I do like the extra open space and the reduction in densities, which I have talked about for a long time. The density was a big deal to me, and so I appreciate your efforts to bring that down to a number that's better. I'm not sure anybody's happy. They would love more, we would love less, and that's kind of the nature of this. But yes, the process is long and difficult. No, you've been heard. We've listened to you. I've spent many visits to the property, listening, talking to people one-on-one. It's know that we take this seriously, and we know how this is. I know how it impacts each person. Where I used to live in Orem, what's happened to our family land there, you see this, you experience, you understand that. But the process is painful and difficult, but I think good progress has been made.
One last thing, Mayor, if I
Go
could.
ahead, Randy.
Just ask a favor that I brought it up in my council report about concerned about the weeds on State Street. That property is one of the major culprits. If we could get that tidied up real quick, that would sure go a long way, I think, to just making Lindon look a little bit better, and your project probably shine a lot more. So that's, I don't know how we filter that through, but that's just my personal request, and I'm sure that probably echoed across the way here to make that a little tidier.
And certainly the no ADUs and traffic calming ideas are part of my as well.
Okay, we ready to move forward?
Ready? Okay, I move to approve ordinance 2021-17-0 to amend the Lindon City zoning map to planned residential development overlay as identified on Exhibit 6 for the properties located approximately 550 North State Street and 310 West 500 North, with the following conditions. 1, to the extent allowed by law, Elwood Holdings LLC will include terms within the conditions, covenants, and restrictions for the development which will limit the number of residential units that can be rented out and be occupied by non-owner residents. The applicant and the city shall work together in good faith during subdivision and site plan approval and come to an agreement as to what rental restrictions shall be most appropriate for the anticipated development. And number 2, all items listed in the staff report.
Can I make one change real quick? That should be Exhibit 7. I apologize, instead of Exhibit 6.
Exhibit 7, I'll make that correction from
Do you
Exhibit
want
6
the motion about the city engineering department and planning, looking at those traffic calming? Okay.
We can include that also. So number 3 is having the engineering department, streets department, look at the traffic calming, potential traffic calming measures. And yeah.
Can you put the ADUs in there at this point too?
Probably not, because it has to be adopted by ordinance under state law, and we're going to be doing that here in a little bit, so I would recommend we not approve this time.
Okay.
I think you sense that that's an important issue.
Yeah.
So, just so let it be known.
We're just waiting for your discussion tonight, and then tomorrow we'll work on that.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second? Kind of quiet.
Somebody's got to step up.
Patient, be patient.
So legislatively, how long do I wait, or should I?
I'll wait for a minute.
Okay, all
If you
right.
would, please.
I just want to make sure
I will second the motion.
There was no undue influence there. I didn't say a word, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Is it just a open vote, or do we have to do a roll call?
It's just a regular vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that was unanimous. Okay. Thank you. We'll move forward, and I know the voice has been heard, and council's committed to making sure we continue to move forward in a refining way, so. Okay, item number 10, it's a public hearing. Someone want to open that?
I'll open the public hearing.
Thank you, Randy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Van. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are now in a public hearing.
Is Jake close by?
You, I don't know if he's out there or not
I
still.
think he was for a minute.
He's coming in. Welcome back. Okay.
Hey, all right, so the applicants are petitioning the council for an amendment to the zoning map on this property in the back here. The applicants are proposing to build 75 storage units and to condominiumize those storage units. That would be your next item on the agenda if the zone change is approved. So the council first reviewed this in 2016 and approved 47, that's right, 46 storage unit condominiums on this property. After a while, the applicants did not move forward on it. They lost their entitlements after 2016. And so since that time, they've acquired this additional property in the back that they are now proposing for the zone change. Sorry, I lost the right page. Let's see. So originally what they did is they purchased this single-family home that was here. The planning commission approved a subdivision to carve off this single-family home, so this back portion is currently zoned residential, and the proposal is to rezone it to light industrial. I'm just gonna go over a few of the site plans so you're familiar with it. So they'll have the 46 storage units in the front still. In the back, they are putting the remainder, so they have a total of 75. The main access is off of 200 South. With how deep this property is, they're required to have a secondary access, which will be off of this single-family home here that's owned by Robert Nilsson. This will only be for emergency access. There'll be a gate there with a Knox box, so only the fire department has access to open that.
On that, Mike, just sorry to interrupt you. How good is that access? And I know it's just for emergency. When I was looking at it today, I was curious if you can get in and out through there really, or if something has to be done.
That'll have to be done. So I've got some pictures of that in your staff report.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
It's pretty rough. They will have to increase that pavement width to 20 feet for fire department access. They have, in their CCNRs, they have a requirement that they'll have to continually maintain that access. Same with the access out to 200 South. That's pretty rough as well. It's owned by Mr. Olson. He was here. I don't see him here any longer, but under their agreement with Mr. Olson, they've got to maintain the pavement. It's with their access out to 200 South. It is 26 feet out to 200 South. Sorry, this is acting a little strange. Get to those. So here's your renderings for those. Here's, it will have a manager's office, and there will be a residence there for the manager. So this does meet our commercial design standards for the manager's office. For the storage units, it'll be just your standard block buildings. They'll have a little bit of architectural change to them with the striping. Here's the accesses currently to the property. So you can see this will be access from 200 south, and then the access to the storage units, that emergency access, that'll definitely need to be improved. Oh, sorry with that.
So Mike, currently right now, they just kind of use this as a general storage area for building materials and equipment and
I think it's
vehicles.
just vacant right now, isn't it?
There's maybe one or two trailers on it, but it's pretty much vacant.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the red portion of your staff report, the planning commission had a lot of questions about businesses being rent out of the units, which you can see that is prohibited. About, if someone's purchasing one of these for an RV, can someone come and maintain the RV? So if you have a service company, about washing it? Will these have electrical and heating? And so there's a lot of questions in your staff report where those are answered. Planning Commission was concerned about businesses, so the CCNRs prohibit businesses and customers coming to the storage units. They will have heating if it's desired by the tenant. They can have that installed. There will be HOA fees for the maintenance of the property. The manager will be there on site from 10 to 2. There will, let's see, they talked about enforcement. That was some of the concerns from the residents about, what if someone wants to buy these and, and they have a hobby cars, and they're working on, sorry, it's getting late. Yeah, vintage cars, how late can they be there doing that? And so it limits that to 10 p.m. So those questions were answered. They'll be strictly prohibited from storing animals or keeping animals, prohibiting or growing anything inside one of these storage units, and then no conducting business. So there will be a 7-foot fence on the site plan wherever there's a detached single-family home.
Yeah, I'd like to see if they rent a storage unit and they don't enter it for 2 years, that what's ever in it is vacated. I mean, we have storage units that exist forever, and I want to say, it's like in my own house. I mean, it's like, can we just clean it out?
As long as they're paying the rent.
They don't pay. It's family.
So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that the council had. We do have a ordinance ready for you when you are ready to pass this.
So all 75 units will be condominiumized?
That'd be your next item.
individually.
Sold individually, and then an HOA fee will be placed that each of them will pay.
Correct.
As I've looked at this model and other types of, in other storage, it just seems like the HOA ends up being too much, that it's almost like a monthly payment anyways. So I'm excited to see how they do that. I'd be curious if they were here to their estimates of that HOA fee, and also what their price point is. You don't happen to know that per unit?
They're here. They might be able to answer that question
I
for
asked
you.
that same question in planning commission, and they didn't quite.
Love
know
to hear
yet.
from you.
They didn't quite know yet.
Responses to the HOA fees, we haven't determined that yet. Price point per unit will depend on the size, but I believe they're currently entertaining about $250. There's, correct, for the larger ones. There is a development that was similar to this that was just put up in Harriman, and they sold out almost immediately, same price point.
must have some sort of a range on this HOA. I mean, nothing?
Because we still have to determine the maintenance and all the amenities that we are or are not going to include.
But at a minimum, it's gonna have to cover your overhead, your
Snow
individual,
removal.
your employee.
Yeah.
Security, all that good stuff. I will say this, as one who was there for all of the planning commission meetings, if it's any consolations, in a very positive way, the planning commission did bake it, boil it, fry it, saute it.
Yes, they did.
Skewer it, and came up with some, I thought, some very good, amazing questions, and these folks were extremely cooperative and helpful in answering those questions, so.
It shows an underground storm tech detention system. What is the surface in there, and does this detention system control all of the runoff, all of the stormwater?
An excellent question that I wish your engineer was here for.
Our engineer is not here for that.
So because they don't have any landscaping on site, so they do have to do that underground storm tech. So the whole site is either the buildings or the asphalt. So Noah and Trent have been reviewing their plans, and they're close to having those finalized.
So asphalt, not really a parking lot, but driving area or whatever, and
There are a few visitor parking stalls. There's 3 inside the storage units, 4 outside by the manager's office.
We have a few of those storm detention basins around town. There's a couple in our industrial business parks that are asphalted over the top. And then Murdoch Hyundai has a huge one. There used to be a detention basin there that the city worked with them and sold. And that's all storm tech underneath it and parking now for their vehicles. So it seems to be working.
For the residents and the neighboring businesses that were noticed, was there any particular feedback?
Noise and lighting, those seem to be the top concerns.
And I believe we addressed those with our HOA, CCNRs. That was one of the things the planning commission had many questions on, and the residents, and we did address those with the CCNRs to take care of.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Nelson's access, which will be emergency access only, will that need to be widened?
It will be, yeah.
And I have no doubt he was contacted. Can you inform us on how is he okay with that? He's open to that.
I believe he's already signed an agreement
Signed
for
an
it.
agreement. We actually have a contract with him and everything, so yeah.
Great. And then I'd like to talk about the other access as well through Mr. Olson's property, who I see step back in. Right now, if I'm looking at it correctly, it looks like it's a parking lot, right? How will that look?
It'll look the same. They'll redo the asphalt through there, but it'll look exactly the same.
And they'll be required to maintain that in perpetuity?
Yes, I believe that's in the agreement that is signed.
Signed agreement.
And recorded. That one is signed and recorded.
Okay.
So we don't anticipate there being a problem then with the parking at Mr. Olson's facility there and being perpendicular? People just, as normal, have to just be careful.
I mean, I think, like, you see this box truck right here, that's in the access way right now. And so that is gonna take some coordination between, these property owners and Mr. Olson to make sure the access is not blocked.
It's almost as if you'd have a dedicated passageway through there, because I've been down there and cars can park a little,
everywhere.
everywhere, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We do have a dedicated access easement with,
Yeah, just make sure that the building that's there with all the refrigerators that are there, that somehow you designate where people should park and shouldn't park, I think,
We would
so.
definitely want to pay attention to that as we improve the road going in there, just to make sure that no issues happen.
The ordinance also has something for man caves, in case we get people living there.
Tailgating parties, you know.
So the gates will be closed at 10 o'clock, no access?
Owners can access
Okay.
anytime they want.
Okay, that was my question. Then they can, it just, none of the described activities can occur after 10 o'clock.
Other questions?
What were some of the sizes of those bigger units? Just
20 by
roughly.
50.
20 by 50?
$250,000?
Ish.
Nice place for their toys.
Yeah, they pay that much for toys.
Yeah. Got a nice boat, need a place to store it. You don't have to winterize it because it can stay heated.
You can winterize it a lot of times for $250,000.
Good.
You buy a boat every year and sell it at the end of the season. I mean,
That's a good idea.
So the climatizing, being able to do that individually, is that just electric climatize?
Gas.
It'll be gas?
Gas and electric.
Okay. And that's all easily plumbed, and then just access, so you've already got some sort of perimeter kind of ability for people to do that, even if they've purchased it after you've, I mean, is there a retro opportunity once you've built?
I would imagine each unit will be metered, whether it's stubbed off from that meter is up to that owner.
Okay, so that would be individual responsibility for the utility bill,
Correct.
and that's already worked out with each of the utility companies then. Okay, thank you.
No water, culinary.
I think there's some taps.
There's
It'll
some
be,
like hose spigots on the outside of the buildings, but in order to help reduce the potential for people living in it, we were not allowed
There's no
to do
plumbing
inside.
or anything like that.
and then there will be a restroom in the manager's office
Correct.
that could be used.
Well, it sounds like it's been well thought through. So,
Are you the original group that came through in 2016? Okay, great.
and you lost interest, right? Is that what it was?
It just, the downturn in the market.
Just
and
wasn't
it just
feasible?
wasn't the time.
Yeah.
Worked out because we got extra property, put more.
So you did work that out then with the person to the,
Stofers.
With the
The
Kings.
east.
to the east? Yeah, you worked that out.
Yes.
She was quite adamant about some
Yes,
some
we've
things.
got that
We
worked
did
out.
work that out with her.
Great, thank you.
They've agreed to sign that
Oh, wonderful.
Mylar, so we're good.
And time frame moving forward? Is this immediate? We're rolling?
We're anticipating to start next year.
That's great.
Well-
Any comments, Chris?
No, I think most everything's been addressed. As far as the parking, I mean, we're obviously gonna have to work something out there. I don't think we're gonna be able to park, the way that they've been parking. We're gonna have to probably turn those on a 45, or something like that, so they're not sticking out quite so far. And obviously, the refrigerator truck's not gonna be able to park, there, so. But I'll work that out with the tenant. I've already talked to him about it, so we should be okay. My biggest concern was, with those big motorhomes and stuff coming through there, the asphalt and stuff through there is just not adequate. It's not gonna hold up. So, it's fairly worn already, and so that was my biggest concern, is just making sure that we get, and we'll probably just wanna paint lines through there, cause
Yeah.
for a safety factor.
Yeah.
Just put lines through there so everybody pulling in knows, hey, this is the path going in and out.
Yeah.
And, so everybody knows where they're supposed to park and not park, and where the road is and everything, and then we get the right asphalt in there for these heavier vehicles. And then the entrance off 200 has definitely gotta be widened, because you're not gonna bring 40-foot motorhomes through that current access. It's gotta be a lot wider.
Even for fire trucks.
Is it proposing to redo that asphalt through there, and who's responsible for in the future maintaining it?
So we will be responsible, or the HOA will be responsible for it. And which entrance are you talking about, widening or redoing, or?
No, he's just talking about,
Off main entrance.
Off
Oh,
the
the main
200.
entrance?
Yeah, off the
Yeah,
200.
we're gonna have to tear that up to put all the utilities there anyway. So once we get those in there, we'll definitely,
It will be re-asphalted when we
yeah.
do our project.
Okay. Any other public comment?
I'll motion to close the public hearing. I'll second.
Motion by Jake, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now out of the public hearing, and now's the time to move forward, or more discussion? We good? Thank you, Randy.
To approve ordinance 2021-7-0. Is this the right one? Yes, to amend the city zoning from residential R120 to light industrial at approximately 800 west, 200 south, parcel number 14-005 to, or 0219.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Randy, second by Carolyn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 11, which is side and, yeah. Review and action, major subdivision, Lindon self-storage plat B and C.
Thanks, Mayor. So this item is the condominium plats for the storage units, and so they have divided it up into two separate plats. Plat B for the first 46 storage units, and Plat C for the remaining storage unit buildings. So this is, you'd be giving major subdivision approval now.
I don't have any additional comments. Does anyone else? If not, I'm willing.
Well, just a kind of a curiosity question. So when you talk about storage and you talk about boats, and I've backed a boat into some storage places, I don't have a feel for the distance between. Sometimes that's a pretty tough maneuver to back in and get
You're saying you didn't back
Get
into
the
the
right angle.
facility, you backed it in towards, I mean, not into a building.
No, you're able to get it in there, but some of those doors, it's tight.
You just need to get a smaller boat.
Or have it as a pull-through, you know, you just pull through.
Are pull through.
Okay.
The ones that don't have, so like they're in the middle, 46 through 33, those are all pull-throughs. We've also had discussions about having on-site it's almost like a dolly that you can do by hand, but it has big capacity. Have one of those on hand so that people that need assistance could unhook it from a truck.
Dollies or forklifts. Forklifts are great with a ball on it. You just lift it up and you can maneuver them real well.
So I would assume you'd give them the opportunity to test it, to try it before they bought something.
Oh, this would be,
make sure.
the HOA would own that and they could just use it.
No, I'm talking about the unit itself.
Oh, yes.
Because I've had the same experience. I mean, you've got about that much room on each side, and you have to back up like 50 times to get to the right angles and.
Right.
Need some lessons there, Mike.
That may be the issue, could very well be the issue.
It looks like the most narrow drive width is 42 feet.
Yeah, but you take the truck and the boat.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it takes some room.
Fast.
was that
Okay.
always the plan to do it in two plats?
We didn't have the
The other
north
property.
piece, so we had the first piece, so we were going to do it in one plat.
Okay, that's what I
46,
remember, but
yes.
it's not a big deal, but that's what I remember from the other meeting.
I think it was two plats at the other meeting, at the planning commission.
I was just talking about before.
Oh, in 2016.
In an effort to withstand the suspense here, are we ready to move forward? Anyone?
Jake, you
Yeah,
want to?
Dick was kind of
Go ahead,
moving.
Jake, it's your turn.
I move to approve the Lindon Self-Storage Plat B and C major subdivision located at approximately 850 West, 200 South as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jake, a second by Van. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Next year is 2022, so that's 6 years after. Just keep moving.
So we'll have a ribbon cutting in another 6 years, is what you're really saying.
Thank you. Okay, item number 12 is a concept review, accessory apartments, Anderson Farms. And I don't see Chris. Is Chris, oh,
So I'm in place of Chris, Peter Gamble.
okay.
So, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I know.
The spitting image. Yeah.
I kind of thought there might be a relation there, so.
There's a
I was gonna say
relation.
something in the bathroom, I thought it'd be weird. If I hadn't looked at you, I'd have thought Chris was here. That voice, man, that's
It's a
awesome.
compliment to Chris. Okay, oh, that's kind of you, thank you. And then, Michael, should I just go for it, or?
Yeah, let me just
Little open.
give you a little bit of background real quick. Ivory Homes approached us a few weeks ago asking about the possibility of doing accessory apartments down at the Anderson Farms development. We currently have an ordinance, the planned development zone, it's the Anderson Farms Planned Development Zone, and it currently prohibits R2 projects in the Anderson development. And so that's the proposal you would be considering is in the future, if you wanted to move forward, is to amend that R2 overlay zone, or not the R2 overlay zone, the Anderson Farms Planned Development Zone.
So this is kind of a litmus test or a thumbs up or maybe, or we're not interested.
Yeah, just a concept review, yep.
Yeah.
And so in your staff report, I provided the plats that have already been recorded, just so you could see lot sizes and lot widths. Most of those are, with the exception of Plat E, and the estates are full, I believe. And so this would mainly apply to whatever's left over in those subdivisions and any future ones. We've also prepared, if you want to look at road widths down there in the Anderson Farms, we have those plans ready for you as well to review. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I appreciate the council having me for this, and this is a unique sort of item for me, that it's just a concept and a discussion to kind of understand the city's pulse, and in preparation for a request to reconsider the barrier for the Anderson Farms development to participate in the ADUs. So right here is the map that the city has provided for the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that has been adopted. And it's hard to tell, but the little hatched area, kind of in the center of the purple-red area, is Anderson Farms. And that's one of the two places that is excluded currently, other than maybe one agenda item earlier today, from the ADU ordinance. I am sure this council has discussed ad nauseum accessory dwelling units, the benefits they have, the challenges they have, and we are truly a believer in accessory dwelling units. When we started Anderson Farms in 2016, we had no idea that this was something that we would be pursuing. But as the state legislature has discussed this, as we've been exploring this, as we've been trying to focus with our Ivory Innovations group, which is one that looks at different national solutions to housing affordability, we truly believe that ADUs can be a market solution to providing better attainability and accessibility into neighborhoods that are, and cities that are really people stretch to get into and stretch to stay into Lindon City. So what we have looked at, again, we know it's not all roses and that there are challenges that come with ADUs. And Michael, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Several of these you are, I'm sure, aware of. But what we've tried to look at in how we can bring ADUs and how we can promote them from our from our position is that we would build them up front. We realize that several of our homeowners, the first thing that they do once they move into our neighborhoods is apply to put in a basement entrance. And so what that tells us is that people are stretching to get into our neighborhoods. People have bought their new homes and built their new homes with the concept that they're actually going to rent out their basements. And so to respond to how people are already living and how people are already building or buying homes, we've decided to design around that. So I just want to go through a few of the issues that can be solved for and be mitigated by doing this. And one of those is design issues. People think of ADUs as something that you do to a retrofitted lot or a home, right? A lot of the discussion in the earlier item today was basements. And that's probably the most common way that you'll find an ADU in an existing community, because it's the easiest way to retrofit a home for this. But that's not the best way to have an ADU. And it really limits
the way that that ADU sets up, the amount of light that the tenant would be receiving, and there's also the sound issue between the two units. Also, there's the concepts that come up, and often with modular homes or retrofitting the lot to add an addition to the home or add a smaller type of tiny home to the back. And lot fits and setbacks and all of these are concerns that come with that. Our idea is, well, if you do the upfront design, and which we'll walk through a couple of our plans here in a moment, you can solve for a lot of those issues of placement. We wouldn't build upfront a basement ADU because we don't believe that that's the most appropriate way to do one. We would not have detached ADUs because we don't think that that's the most efficient way to use a lot. We wouldn't have detached ADUs because we feel that it doesn't fit as well into the neighborhood schematics. Another point that comes across is while we at Ivory and while the state appears has bought into the concept of ADUs as helping housing affordability, the idea of retrofitting a lot to include an ADU can often be an expensive feat, especially if you're looking at a detached or an addition to an existing home. And the average cost of one of these detached units can well exceed $100,000, and these are those modular units that are expected. Now, we do believe that those pay off over time and that they can help in the housing affordability market, and especially for those who are looking to get a small one-bedroom apartment in an established community, there is an affordability to that. But we believe that the affordability also comes to those homeowners who have decided to implement the ADUs. And so how you can solve for that up front and when you build the ADUs directly into the homes is that there's the whole home financing at that point. When someone's coming into the home, they're coming in there at the same time as receiving a mortgage for their primary residence, they're doing that also for the ADU. And those underwriters can actually take in the expected rent into writing that mortgage. So someone who can plausibly have $1,000 extra of income can actually afford more home in a more desirable community. Finally, and this I think is a big one for the city council to consider, is right now with the ADU ordinance, and the city in Lindon has been very accommodating to ADUs and does allow them in much of the city. The problem is there are enforcement issues with ADUs, and why it's an ADU and why it's not a duplex, for sizing reasons and other reasons, is that the primary owner needs to be occupying the home. This can't function as a two-part investment property. So there is a primary residence, and then there is a possible rented residence. And so how we've done this in a city that I'll talk about very shortly, where we've actually started doing this. And actually what was brought up in the item before is how do we really enforce this? We've actually gone and deed restricted those homes so that there's a deed restriction requiring that for the ADU to be rented, or the home itself must have primary owner occupancy. Another issue that comes up with the concept of enforcement in terms of ADUs is, well, we don't want everyone having these as nightly rentals, as Airbnbs. And we agree with that. I think that defeats half of the purpose of ADUs, which is to bring housing affordability. And if we're just bringing this for sheerly the income of the primary resident without impacting those who would be otherwise renting it and causing more disruption to a neighborhood, we don't want those to be that way. And so why does building those up front in new neighborhoods, why is that mitigating building up front in new neighborhoods? As many of you, as all of you are aware, newer neighborhoods are more likely to have CC&Rs, are more likely to have homeowners associations. In terms of Anderson Farms, we have a very active homeowners association. And so instead of the city instead of the city being the only enforcement measure on protecting the actual quality of these ADUs and how they're used, you also have the level of the homeowners associations. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. These are some pictures that I took, so forgive the quality, of a community that we're doing in Midvale right now called the Pines. This was our prototype community, and we'll go through the floor plans that we have established for this. But these are three lots in an existing neighborhood that we did years ago, so it's actually the Pines Phase 2. And these are our first ADU homes that we are actually going to be bringing into our general catalog. We believe that we wanted to make a ADU home that would fit in a neighborhood next to everyone else's normal single-family homes. And we wanted to show that if you look at these on the street, you would never think that this is anything other than a normal home. So if you don't mind going to the next picture. Because my pictures are so bad, I prefer the I prefer the architect's renderings. So this kind of gives an idea of the scale and the massing and what these will look like at the end. There are two different types here. So there's two of the same on the left. Those are what we are dubbing the cottage duets. And the one on the right, the far right, which is what we are dubbing as the multi-gen home. And we'll go a little more into that, if you don't mind going to the next, Michael. I think this is an important slide just to show how we lay these out and how, again, building these up front can solve for many issues. As you'll notice on the far right, this is the multi-gen unit. You do have a two-car garage, kind of in the courtyard garage style, that would be there for the primary residence. You also have a single-car garage there directly for the ADU residents. On those other two on the far left, those, and maybe the pictures would have been a little bit better, but you'll see the shared driveway will lead again into kind of a courtyard for each of those garages. And then in this particular case, we have parking for the ADUs will be behind those garages. We also are doing these ADUs in Salt Lake City where they actually have a 3-car garage, so one stall specifically for the ADU. Michael, if you don't mind going to the next. So just to kind of get in a little bit into these floor plans, as you'll notice in the yellow, that's the primary residence. In the blue is the ADU. Again, they are ADUs, they're not duplexes. So the idea is that the ADU is small. These things, I can't read that right there, but the ADU does not exceed 700 square feet. This ADU, in what we call the cottage duet, or what my Uncle Chris calls the Fonzie unit, is above the garage. So a reference I didn't catch, but so.
Happy days are here again.
Yeah, I guess. So the idea is that the primary residence is actually completely disconnected from this ADU, but for that shared wall, and because we know that it's a shared wall, the wall would be set up so as to produce some sound mitigation between that. The home is lined up so as to keep the master bedroom away from that. I mean, it's a thoughtful design that, and this doesn't show it well, but on the middle slot, you'll see that there's that breezeway, because that top floor is actually still existing there. So there's that breezeway in between that creates some yard and outdoor space that can be shared between those units, or that can be closed off and used for the primary residence. And if you don't mind going to the next, Michael, thank you. This one was actually made in conjunction with Salt Lake City when we were floating this idea a couple of years ago. And they said, we like the idea of ADUs. Salt Lake City has also been very much in promoting ADUs. We don't like that the only plan that you have is above the garage. Because a lot of ADUs, other than renting, can also be used for multi-generational households. And so this is why we're dubbing this one the multi-gen unit. Again, in the blue is the ADU. It's a small 600 square foot and change unit that is at grade level. We envision that this one would primarily be for, or would likely have a customer who maybe has an aging parent, maybe has a disabled child, or maybe has familiarity with those who will be living in the ADU. For that reason, and it's a little difficult to see on that slide, there's a door that links the two. But this would be the type of hotel door that could lock from each side. So in the event that it is someone more familiar to you, like your grandmother who lives next door, you could live cohesively as a single family. In the event that you're using this for income, or maybe grandma doesn't want you coming in and out, that can be locked from either side. So this one is what we're really excited about, and that's the multi-generational. We know that people are living in multi-generational households already. We think that this is a good way to build up front for that. Michael, if you don't mind going to the next slide. And so, just to kind of finish it up, these are units that we're bringing to our general catalog. We actually think that this will end up being a unit, these will be a unit style that will be selected by homeowners or home buyers because it fits what their plans are with their families, and it fits how they can afford to get into certain neighborhoods. And we also believe that these units will work side by side with the rest of our catalog. So in Anderson Farms, and I've kind of outlined Anderson Farms, Anderson Farms Plan Development Area in blue. The remainder that's left that this could even plausibly affect is in the green. So this wouldn't, we've already built out much of Anderson Farms. These wouldn't be completely present throughout, but we do believe that this is something that we would really like to add to our catalog and have as an option within Anderson Farms. We believe they bring a value to the community. We believe they bring a value to home attainability, and we believe that the impacts from them can be severely reduced when they're built up front and when they're done thoughtfully. And so all I would like to ask at this point is I appreciate your discussion in this. I appreciate getting a sense of what you feel about this. And also, is this something that we would see Lindon City Council being in favor of lifting that restriction from the Anderson Farms areas as a whole, or is yet to be completed and shown in the green? I appreciate your time. Thank you, Council.
Thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
So currently, when we did this agreement, the density in here is already, smaller lot sizes generally, and also the streets are narrower. There's not as much street width, curb and gutter to curb and gutter. I think it's 27.5 feet or 28 feet.
29 for.
29,
and
okay.
2 and 2 with a curve.
2 and 2, thank you. So that's the one concern is, as I talk, I think ADUs are fantastic generally as a concept. I like that Lindon has always been an early adopter of them. But that's my only concern is Ivory already had a narrower streetscape design throughout the community, and so how would that address, additional parking on the street and making those really harder to navigate? If we were to look at this, I would want to probably not just have it be a carte blanche, across the board. I'd want to carefully plan it so that maybe it's only on certain lots that are a minimum size, because some of the lots are already small. And maybe a lot that has a particular frontage to accommodate, potential parking issue. So those are just some of the thoughts that came to my mind initially. But I think I like the multi-gen design that I think that would be very practical for a lot of families. I'm not so sure about the one that looks more kind of like townhomes almost with the shared driveway. I'm not sure about that concept. I'm not sure how you would define the lot or the parcel. Would it go straight down the middle of that driveway?
With the
ones that
above
have
the
the
garage
shared-
units? Sure, yeah, that would just have the shared driveway access agreement.
Okay. All right. Well, that's my initial thought.
Appreciate it, Councilmember. Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Take your time, you don't have to.
I'm trying to get back to it. Mine keeps getting out. Here's my first thought. As I've driven around the Ivory development, lots of great things happening over there. The roads are tight. They're tighter as we do a master plan agreement. You think you understand exactly how tight it is. They're very tight. It's tighter than I would have liked over there. Had to stop and let a car come through while I went through, which isn't what Lindon has traditionally done. As far as ADUs on single-family residences, pre-designed, I like that idea. In fact, I'm pretty familiar with a builder who's doing it in vineyard, but in basements. I love it. I think it's a great idea, a great way to do it because it flows so much better. So much of Lindon has done it 20, 15 years after, and it's sometimes doesn't flow as well. So my thought is that I guess how much does Ivory want to do this? I'm wondering if there is any negotiation options with our commercial piece that we're very concerned with that is coming close to a timeline, which is
It's already
passed.
Yeah, I think that has sunsetted.
So I don't know how desirous they are. If that was still on the table, that would be something I'd be maybe willing to negotiate. I don't know how Chris is feeling about that. My guess is that that's not on the table. But if it were, then that may be something I'd be interested in negotiating with. But if that's not on the table, I think my thought would be absolutely not on anything that's less than 10,000 square feet. And maybe I could get on board with one of those sections, maybe not all of those sections. Maybe that back right section is the right, I believe that's the estates. The majority of those lots are 10,000 square feet. Maybe it's an option there. The problem is it doubles the amount of traffic that'll come through, and it's at the very end. I'm more open to it than I thought I'd be when I first heard about it. I really love that multi-gen floor plan. I think that's phenomenal. I think that my peers, those my age, would love that type of option. But really, really hard just because I already feel like it's very tight over there from a road width standpoint, from a density standpoint.
Yeah, my thoughts are very similar. Drove through it there again today. Roads are narrow, lots of cars in the street already. Going to add to that congestion. And the idea that you plan an ADU unit, as a builder myself, I know you can do that, and it's the best way to do it, but that doesn't mean that it works here for what has already happened here, for the size of the lots, how small they are, size of the roads. I will struggle greatly with this. Jake says it nicely, but I would be probably a hard no.
Okay, my turn. I probably have to disagree with the Gen X, having been, I like some of the concept on that particular one. I do not like the fact you can't see a door, that it's mainly a garage door front on both sides, and that you have to navigate and decide which door to get to when you come in, whether you're a DoorDash or it's a little bit not understanding where you need to go. If I'm not in a campaigning mode, but if I was having to do those residents, I'd have to choose which door I'm going to head to. So it's a little confusing for that. Regarding the other designs, I'd have to say, where does a backyard feel come from? It's hard to find a backyard, an opportunity to have a backyard in those. The way these are designed, I do like the idea of having to be able to pre-plan for an ADU. I'm also very proud of our city for well over a decade, probably 15 years, that we've been on the forefront of accessory dwellings in our city. And now we'll, transition to calling them ADUs, and grateful that we've been able to just roll with what the state has mandated. It's been a really easy adjustment for us. I'll have to echo what Jake said about the 500 North. I know that it's sunsetted, but that being said, that would be my only reason to even consider an ADU. I think that when I ran again in 15, it was for the two purposes, and Anderson Farm was one of them, getting that through. It was important for me, though I despise density, that's an area that density makes sense to me, always has, in order to accomplish the 500 or the 500 North corridor and putting those rooftops in. But as Van has said, it's very tight down there, and I'm not willing to add any more dwellings down there. Also, maybe it's just a personal note, but I'm still irked about your townhomes not being for sale. So that does not really sit really well with me, and I'm just going to say that out loud. But I'm not running for reelection, so I can say that. But again, I would be willing to have a discussion, not saying where it would go, but if the 500 North were on the table, then that particular commercial lot, I could have a discussion about that, but it would have to be very intense and deep and on very limited parcels from my point of view. So that's my standpoint.
I'm just sorry Chris isn't here to hear all this.
I know, so I'm
What Chris told you coming in here? Did he
No,
say,
I feel
"Hey,
bad."
I'm feeding you to the lion's den," or was he like?
So pleasant, not to say that Chris isn't, but I would have liked to have had more of a banter with him, so he kind of stole the thunder. I mean,
Sorry.
no,
yeah,
but you're just so sweet.
I can try and
You're
get
too
more
nice.
spirited.
You're just so extra nice, and I don't know, not that Chris isn't, he's just, I can, do a little bit more with him,
And then
but,
I could razz him that the U's not, they're 0 and 2, or no, they're 1 and 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not that we're razzing anybody tonight, but.
No, I think that would razz Chris the most out of all this discussion.
I know. Mike, anything you want to say?
You know, this all happened way before my time. I'm not unfamiliar with the back and forth and some of the feelings, strong feelings that my fellow council members have. At this point, honestly, I'm prepared just to listen and learn and be involved in some further discussions that I can understand, so I can understand some of the thought processes that you all have and your motivations. And I mean, we've got a few tonight, but I think a lot of it goes deeper than that. So I'm just gonna, right now, I'm just gonna sit tight.
So there's our report.
Well, I really appreciate it, council. Thank you for having me. Thank you for these discussion items. If I can just try and say one thing, and the idea is not that all of these would contain this type of unit. The idea is that it would be something that would just be an option in the catalog. So I can understand where the council's coming from and the narrow roads and the density bonuses that were given in terms of the general plan development here. But this wouldn't be looking for doubling what is left, but just having it as an option. But I appreciate that. And then I would also just like to end with a invitation to any of the council members. If you're interested in these, whether or not you believe that these are something in Lindon and you just want to see how these worked out, like we've shown in those pictures right there, we're finishing up those 3 homes. And we are more than happy to tour any of you through those. It's in Midvale, so I know it's a little bit of a drive, but I did it today.
Why don't you give that address to Mike, and it would be helpful.
Absolutely will.
At least go look at them.
Yeah, and I'll also have my contact information to Mike, and we'd be happy to walk you through and just kind of, if you're interested in seeing how these work out and what these look like in practical use, we'd be happy to have you there and would encourage you to do so. I appreciate your time, council. Thank you.
And I hope that you can take back to Chris, we're still highly interested in that commercial portion, that's something that would be very of keen interest if we
Sure.
could acquire.
Absolutely.
That came through, didn't it? I mean,
I
that
mean,
was pretty.
I think that was, yeah.
And there is a second, there is a plan B.
We're interested, not that interested, okay?
Just in case you're wondering, we're
There is a
interested in that
plan
commercial.
B if we could get that depth that does a different plan, so in the master development, we're still open to that.
I'll definitely speak with Chris. I appreciate it. Thank you so much,
All right,
council.
thank you for your time.
And tell him also, if he'll open up that discussion about that, I'll guarantee a Utah win next game.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Who are they playing? Bo Diddley Tech?
It's getting deep.
Who do they play next? Washington State.
Oh.
So who beats them next is really the question.
Okay, next, review and action on the major subdivision for Lindon's Edge Office Condominium Plat A.
Mayor, I don't see Steve Davies
Yeah, I
here.
don't either.
If you still want to review it, we can, or we can push this off to the next meeting, whatever you'd prefer.
Let's push it off, I like that.
I'll motion
Are we okay?
I'll motion to push it to the next
second.
meeting.
This is pretty straightforward, it's just
Does he?
condominiumizing existing office buildings, but.
Do you feel he needs to be here?
It is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, based on my experience in the planning commission meeting, they asked a lot of good questions, and it was pretty straightforward.
I'm familiar with the property. I'm comfortable with it. I don't
He
know
was
that I need
unanimous
Steve
vote.
here to get me to be to a place that I'm comfortable with it.
It was
Anything you need-
unanimously recommended
Yeah,
forward,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It was
Knock
pretty
it out real
straightforward.
quick.
It didn't
Let's
even
do
take
it.
that long.
So the Lindon Edge development, you're familiar with the 2 office buildings that they're completing over there. The Planning Commission approved 11 of these office buildings. They each have 3 units in each building. Here's Main Street. These are the 2 that are under construction. The next phase will be building C and D. So they're proposing to condominiumize those 4 buildings right now. They'll come back at a future date and condominiumize the other 11 or the other 10. And so they have some tenants right now. One tenant is a office for a pest control company. They want to take all of either A or B, and so he's got tenants interested in the other 3 units in one of the other buildings. So I've got the subdivision plat ready, which is just you can see condominiumizing those 4 units, and then you've got the vertical elevations as well. That's part of that condominium project. So with that, the Planning Commission gave a unanimous approval. We've got a motion ready for you if you'd like to approve that. As
Yeah,
well.
make it any easier.
I'll make the motion.
Any
Unless
questions?
There's
Are we-
any further discussion?
Your raw units that the tenants will then improve,
They'll do their own tenant improvements, correct?
so they'll have to come through and get their building permits and.
Yeah, he's still got some, I think, sidewalk that he's got to install over there, and some exterior improvements.
Yeah, help me move it a little bit further south, the sidewalk.
That will go in eventually.
They're turning out really nice. I was over there the other day. They look great.
They are good.
Yeah, the buildings look good. I've
They're
been
gonna
there
rev
as well.
up too, so.
Go
All
ahead,
right.
Mike.
Okay, I move to approve of the applicant's request for approval of the Lindon's Edge Office Condominium Plat A with the following conditions. 1, the applicant will continue to work with city staff to make all final corrections to the plat for recording. 2, prior to plat recording, the applicant will provide staff with a final plat Mylar to include notarized signatures of owners, consent to dedication as identified on the attached subdivision plat. 3, prior to recording, the applicant will provide staff with a final set of CC&Rs and bylaws to include notarized signatures. 4, the plat will meet the applicable requirements as found in the Lindon City Development Manual. 5, final covenants, conditions, and restrictions will be recorded with the subdivision plat. And 6, all items of the staff report.
Mike gets the award for doing the motions,
Longest
the
one.
longest
My
amendments.
goodness.
I think of the year, and you did 2 of them. Then I'll second that, Mike.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike, second by Randy. Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Adam, you're going to take us through this new employee position and job reclassification?
Yeah, so we have a current opening for building inspector position, and we are struggling to find qualified applicants within our current pay range on that. And so what we're bringing forward to you tonight, a couple employee recommended changes. This first one being the creation of still having just our 2 building inspector positions and our chief building official, but creating a category 1, 2, and 3. We're seeing this in other larger cities where it's different pay ranges for those levels based on the certifications and experience that they have. So our current building inspector is on range 17, and interestingly, this is how fast the market's moving. Construction's going nuts. We're competing for these types of individuals with private sector businesses that they can make a lot more in a dollar per hour wage. Benefits, it's a little bit uncertain of what some of these private sector employees are making as far as benefits in the construction industry, but hourly rates we're struggling to keep up. And so we, as a city, we had done a wage and salary study. It was completed in April and May, and this range was just barely below average. We felt like it was appropriate. When we've looked at that again and compared to current listings, we're several dollars off. And so what we're recommending is that our current inspector, who is at the Inspector 3 level with his certifications, be moved to range 19, and then that we create for this still vacant opening the opportunity to hire at any of these 3 ranges, 17, 18, or 19, with those pay amounts associated there. Questions on this?
You know, it's interesting, there's statewide, there was a Get part, expose where he talked about this is chronic statewide for many cities, and that they do not have enough people coming up through the talent pipeline either.
That is correct.
To fill those that are retiring, so.
Public and private. I've talked to a lot of business owners.
Very difficult. Interestingly, so Orem lost what we understood was 2 inspectors to Heber, or at least the county area, and they have a current opening for an Inspector 3 with a $6,000 signing bonus. I don't know how to compete with that, and so at some point we're not getting as quality of applicants or having fewer choices when we're competing with that in our neighboring city for the same level of inspector certifications. And so this is an attempt to try to right the ship a little bit and at least be competitive in the pay. And I hope it will, this move, at least with one of our current inspectors, will retain him longer and help him stick around. I hope he works until he's 85. He's doing great. And so this is an attempt to both attract and retain.
Discussed ways that they could potentially, maybe do an apprentice type program, or what are some of the ideas that have been discussed with
So
staff?
on this Inspector 1, this is if they were to come in and have the ability to become licensed within 6 months after being hired. So this is 0 years experience. We're willing to train someone. And so again, it's just getting the right fit and the individual that we hope has some level of construction experience and hasn't just been educated through the book and never pounded a nail. There's some definite value to those that have had construction experience when they're inspecting.
I was gonna say Tinker Toys or something, just, the
I would
log.
hope for more than that,
Yeah.
but.
It's a problem throughout everything.
Here's a question for you, because when you first listed the ad, I showed that specifically to somebody that would be very qualified to do this. And his response was, oh, that's very similar to what I'm at right now. So that was part of there, but he says, I love where I'm at. I don't know in the public sector what you do in the recruiting world, if that's possible.
So we are direct emailing those that we can obtain emails for. We are listing things on Indeed. We are posting things on our Facebook page, on our website. We post all of our openings on the Utah League of Cities and Towns website. That's a pretty high trafficked spot for government positions in the state.
Do you ever use headhunters?
No, we have not. So, yeah, that.
So here's another
Our city
thought.
wants to pay.
Headhunters are expensive, but that's not a bad option. I mean, if you want to get people. But at UTA, we pay a bonus to the employee who makes a referral to someone that comes and works in the organization.
You've seen those emails from me. We've offered $150 to anybody that.
Sweeten the pot.
So we could up that. That's worked a couple times, and so.
Throw in 2 pool passes and I'm in.
They're going to sell Lindon City if they work here. They enjoy it. That's a great reference point, and they want to make sure Lindon stays good. So.
Would it be appropriate on our own personal Facebook accounts or Instagram accounts to post?
Oh yeah, we've posted those on our Facebook page, and so.
No, but he's saying personally,
our
and
personal one.
we would not be
absolutely.
discouraged from recruiting any place needed.
Yep. Any way that you can get the word out, and we've gone through Indeed, we've posted stuff on KSL Jobs in the past, and so we're trying to to branch out, but we've even posted hard copies down at some of the hardware and lumber stores they have some display boards. So we've done that in the past, and that's with public works openings primarily, so.
There's certain places where you go to get your certifications to be, able to do the inspections. Do you ever reach out to those places to let them know that there's jobs?
I don't believe we have done that yet, so that's a good idea.
Just trying to brainstorm.
Yeah,
a little.
that's an idea I'll have to ask about. So this is one issue on the agenda tonight. The next that I wanted to review with you, just over the last few months where we've had with our utility clerk that passed away suddenly, and we realized with that position specifically how much institutional knowledge that we had lost. We struggled to even get utility payments or utility bills out the next month, and for a couple of months that was very difficult. We were fortunate, we hired somebody that was the utility clerk in Mapleton, and she's done fantastic, hit the ground running, really lucked out. She was one of the only qualified candidates that actually had experience when we interviewed there. So with that issue, and then recently with Kristen being out several weeks with her husband, and then their family had COVID, and if we are missing somebody in our administrative finance section, we have a hole in the boat. And I need somebody that's a backup finance director. And so Kristen and I have talked about a position in the department that would be finance oriented for a couple of years. We have not, to my knowledge, since I've worked for Lindon, added any new employees in the administration section. And this is somebody that would be a backup, part of the job description to the utility billing, to the accounts payable, and to the treasurer position. It would be an assistant finance director, so they would be responsible to learn other duties. They may have supervisory experience, but this is something where I feel like we're at the point, for the size of our city, we need some redundancy that I cannot obtain by contracting it out. So,
Adam, and I'm asking probably more Mayor Acerson, is that when Jamie passed all those years ago, was Kristen an assistant financial director at the time, or she was an
She
employee?
was the finance director, and then actually left work and
Okay.
went home for
Okay.
a couple years. And so she came back when Jamie passed, within a week.
So without having that, that's what had been a huge hole on the boat.
Gigantic.
Because with that sudden passing of Jamie, and I wasn't here for that. So.
This is not a good department to work.
It's had a rough go this summer, so.
I just think that it's a very important
Adam, I like,
redundancy to have.
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I think it's an important thing that we make sure we have some depth to these departments.
I like the broader training across, where you're filling multiple holes, because you don't know which piece is gonna go down, and to have that cross-training, I think that's valuable to the city and prudent and wise to try to do that, so.
I think it also helps, I'm sorry, I think it helps also, whatever the department that person might end up in the long run, to have that knowledge of all of those, all those skills.
This young lady that you brought in from, where was it?
Mapleton.
Heather?
Mapleton, what's her position? It's not.
She's the utility billing clerk.
She's the utility billing clerk,
Yes.
okay. Could she possibly, I know you have to advertise it and everything, but.
Yeah, we're looking for, this is an executive level position. We're hoping for somebody with an accounting degree, or even a licensed CPA that we can come in and really shore up our financial and budget process. And this is something, I'll be honest, I think is a little bit of a challenge for Kristen, because she's feeling this is maybe somebody stepping on her toes. And I am saying that being dead honest with you, that she has that hesitancy, and she knows, and I've had this conversation with her, and we came up together with this title, the Assistant Finance Director. We felt like that was the title and the role that would be best for the city. And she has heard it from me, and I'm saying it on the public record. This is not a replacement for Kristen. Kristen is our finance director, and I have no intent to replace her. And so this is somebody that we hope will help through our budgeting and finance needs and have the level of position that can fill in these holes that we hopefully don't experience.
And I would hope, and I'm sure Kristen would be amenable to this, that the intent is not to replace her, but the intent is to be prepared in the event that time comes, that Kristen embraces her in the sense that I'm going to teach everything I can do, but you're not going to push me out. I'm going to be here.
Right.
I mean, I think that
She may find that it's gonna be a lot of pressure off of her.
yeah, it'll
too,
help her.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
But what I heard was it wouldn't just be Kristen's, offshoring some of Kristen's responsibilities. This would be someone who can somewhat float from
Yes.
department to department and.
All within the same department, but would help other departments within the city.
So there would be
as a
some
liaison.
well-defined, delineated duties.
Yes.
And then they would answer to Kristen.
Correct.
Okay.
I like it. And when we get to, are we there for a motion yet?
Absolutely.
Can I make that motion?
That's what Adam's hoping for.
Van, it's your turn.
I'd like to do this if I could.
Oh.
If I could.
Are you okay with it?
No, I hadn't made my comments.
Okay.
I move to approve the new employee position and job reclassifications as recommended by Adam.
I like that. That's good. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Carolyn, we have a motion by Randy, second by Carolyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Tell Kristen she can breathe freely. We don't want her to leave anytime.
And we
still
also
love her.
don't want our building inspector 3 to go
You'll
anywhere.
love her and want her.
Yes. Thank
And
you.
we're sensitive to that as you're the CEO of this city. We're sensitive to, that's probably something that's keeping you up at night. And probably one of your
It
top
is.
priorities is staffing.
And this is one of the areas that I am not skilled enough in this area to run our software. And so, I mean, it's that level of, I don't know what button to push to get the information that we need. And so, we would struggle extremely. I would be literally calling another city's finance director, asking them to come work overtime for us. And so if we were to lose Kristen. So thank you. I feel a huge amount of support from our city council. I'm really thankful for where I work.
We're thankful
Thank
to
you.
have you.
Yeah. You're the best.
Well, on that grateful, emotional confirmation, thank you, Adam. And that's meant with all of our, we want you to be successful, so keep bringing it to our attention when there's a need. The council's open to that, so. Now's the time to close session. Someone want to throw us into the closed session?
I'll make that motion. Go into closed session.
Mike, is there a second?
Second.
We have to
By
do that
Jake,
by-
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Do we have to do that by a roll call? Or-
Yes.
Do roll call on that?
I believe
Followed
you
by
do
roll
to go
call.
into a closed session, yes.
All right, Carolyn
Coming,
Lundberg.
but yeah, you have to leave now.
Carolyn Lundberg, present.
Mike Vancherry, present.
Takeaway present.
Jeff Acerson, aye.
Roderick, aye.
Randy Powell, aye.
3 versus 3, which one's right?
Aye, yes. Aye.
And I have a total of 20 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Is that why you're dressed up?
I have a couple missionaries that are in need.
Go grab that door.
The mind can comprehend what the bladder can endure.
Actually, I've got a little bit more time, but it's.
How you doing there,
Not
Kathy?
too late.
I'm gonna say one more time.
I suspect